started? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 25th meeting of the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners. Will everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, it's going to be a good night. We get to honor our police, so it'll be a good night. I will make notice that the board met in executive session prior to the March 18th meeting, the special meeting that we had last Monday night, and all commissioners were present except for Commissioner Booker, and we discussed a personnel matter. And then we just met prior to this meeting, and all commissioners were present except for Commissioner Abel, and we discussed matters of legal and personnel, or real estate, excuse me, and personnel. May I get, is there anything that anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda this evening?
I'm going to pull,
No?
pull item E.
E? Anything else? Is there anything that staff would like to pull from the consent agenda this evening? Is there anything the public would like to pull from the consent agenda this evening? All right, may I get a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item E?
So moved.
All right, all those in favor of the consent agenda minus item E, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Abel, item E.
Yeah. Can I just get a time frame on the 2019 resurfacing program? And we have not done the 2018 yet, so if we could get a time frame on when that'll be completed.
So the 2018 program is going to start in about 2 weeks, April 15th. And the 2019 program, if the commissioners approve that tonight, the plan is to go out to bid as soon as possible and have it complete, I noted in the memo, by the end of the summer. Our goal is to get it done by Labor Day, barring any issues.
What's the criteria on the roads selected? Does it have to be roads? Can it be parking lots?
You cannot use state liquid fuels for parking lots. They have to be public roads. They're all mapped out. So each road is listed to the state as a public road, so you can't use that for parking lots.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? May I get a motion to approve item E?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other comment? Any staff comment? All right. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-23, authorizing the receipt of sealed bids for the 2019 Super Pave Resurfacing Program, please indicate by saying aye. 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 All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Public participation. We'd like to invite the public to come and speak. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Reed Taylor, and I'm here as a member of the Wayne Business Association, and more importantly, as a lifelong resident of Wayne. It's stating the obvious that Wayne has never looked worse. There is some good news, however, and that is that there's relatively simple fix to at least get the Wayne Business District up to an acceptable appearance. But it requires strong leadership and accountability, and that's why I and many others are counting on you. It's a refresh consisting of 3 initiatives. First, remove all the existing trees in the Wayne Business District and plant 60 new Cleveland pear trees as recommended by the Shade Tree Commission. Second, repave all diagonal parking spaces in front of the businesses from Cowan's at the eastern end of Lancaster to Privé Salon at the western end of Lancaster, and from the Wayne train station down North Wayne Avenue to Wayne Jewelers on both sides. Third, remove rocks and replant the key highly visible corners of Wayne with low maintenance and relatively low cost ornamental grasses consistent with those of Bellevue Park across from the old Anthropology, as well as Laripe ground cover. A planning plan has already been submitted by the Wayne Business Association to Commissioner Larkin. The key corner plantings and the repaving need to be completed now, and the trees in September. The $4 million plan may be worth pursuing, but it has nothing to do with, nor should it delay, these three initiatives. I would ask you to not kick the can down the road and do this basic maintenance work now. Thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue.
Evening.
The only person who was on this board when we, the Garrett Hillians, worked tirelessly for nearly 3 years to preserve the pattern of development in our neighborhood. The end result was a zoning description. We now have, and Bob is dealing with this, but I think you all need to know, we are now dealing with a semi-detached that's being built. It is strong suspicions that it is totally out of the zoning code. Bob has brought in Yerkes, and they're going to measure it beam by beam. The unfortunate part is the windows are in and the roof is on, but it's too tall. We do not believe it's got the proper setback. We're not so sure of the side yard setback. The building is being built for $699,000 each. That could conceivably have people living on 4 floors, which requires 1 more parking space in the rear, so we're worried about the concern. This may be happening in Garrett Hill, and the reason it got brought to attention is so many of us were committed to that Garrett Hill process and attended at least 1 meeting a week, if not twice a week, for close to 3 years. So we blew the whistle that something was going on. I wanted you to know, because this could easily happen in any of your wards. And it's almost too late to do something about this house, but it's a semi-detached, but it is so out of scale to Garrett Avenue that it sticks out like a sore thumb. So I just wanted you to be aware of what is going on, because this is not fair to the people who worked so hard for nearly 3 years to preserve the pattern of development for Garrett Hill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Chris Todd with the WBA. Hey, I want to thank all of you for sitting down with us the past few weeks. We've had some great discussions, great ideas have came forth, but I just wanted to come up and kind of give a reminder about those 3 action items we've been talking about, okay? That's the repaving of parking lots and spots throughout the Wayne Business Overlay District, landscaping the corners so that they might even look as nice as the Township building, okay? And the removal of the trees, which we've been talking about for years. Actually, there was money funded for it last year. It didn't work, and now that money's not there anymore. But with landscape corners, repaving of parking lots and spots, and tree removal will bring such, yes, thank you, John. 10 years, he said. Will give the town the look that it deserves, okay? We've shown you the relevance of keeping the business district up to date and looking good, all right? The impact study, which is there's some impact studies in the back, if anybody's interested. Economic impact study, I should say. Tells you many things, but the most important and the most basic is that a competitive WBOD will only enhance new business to come, fill the voids of those spaces that are empty, which entail will strengthen your local taxes, as well as create local jobs. And to date, I honestly don't know one politician that doesn't want that on their website, okay? So to me, it's basic, taking care of your front yard. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, Roberta.
Good evening, Roberta Winters, 326 Williams Road in Rosemont. First, I'd like to commend the board for recognizing that it's Women's History Month. And as a League of Women Voters member, we are beginning to walk into our 100th year, and I think it's important that we recognize those women and men before us who have tried to work to make democracy improve in its function and purpose. I would also like to make note that I have also attended many meetings here where we have heard from residents who have had development in their areas that have failed to comply with zoning, and we have seen action on the board. We would like to see action in our community, as we have seen in others, where developers have failed to comply with zoning that has created problems. And the third thing I would like to note is I know the Wayne Business Association does many things, and they have provided a lot of information to you. Based on my recollection, there was also something at the time that the Wayne Business Overlay was developed called the Wayne Business Enhancement Trust. And that's job was to perhaps maintain some of those areas that now appear to be deficient. And I would hope that before we provide funds for what is needed rather than what is wanted, that we make sure that the Wayne Business Enhancement Trust, or whatever that organization was called, has in fact done its job and is accountable for providing the Wayne Business Association what it needs to be healthy and attractive in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Good evening, Nancy.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Nancy McKenzie. Some of you don't know me. I live in Ward 4, right down the street from the Delaware County Christian School on Westover Road. I'm here to ask you to vote in favor of item P on the agenda, the motion to authorize our township solicitor to attend the Newtown Zoning Hearing Board on April 18th to represent our neighborhood, an R2 residential neighborhood where the Christian school wants to put in a commercial turf lit field that technically in Newtown can be lit till 10 o'clock at night. And we need help. We can't have this in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Hello.
evening.
My name is Fred Stein. I work with the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, and I just had a couple of comments on the agenda. I'd like to follow up with the last person about item number P, about sending the solicitor to represent the township to the Newtown Zoning Board. I'd like to have them also be listening to stormwater opportunities too, because the new turf field, and there's not a lot of detail in the packet, but I'm assuming that some of the improvements they're talking about is going to increase, it could increase stormwater runoff, and that's right on the Fox Run, which flows right into the Darby Creek. So while they're listening and thinking about light trespass and how that might impact Ward 4 residents, we should also ask them to make sure they're bringing back information for engineering on stormwater, because there likely could be great opportunity to manage stormwater in Newtown, on that process too, if not in the actual artificial field, but maybe in cisterns next to the buildings and things like that. That could be an opportunity for them and maybe for Radnor to have a more symbiotic relationship with them. The other two objects was also on the $4 million for the Wayne Business Overlay. This probably goes without saying because I know that it's referencing the old Wayne Business Improvement Plan. Just wherever that landscaping design is being looked at is to take advantage of that, any changes for stormwater management all along Wayne Avenue or the Wayne Business District. I know stormwater was mentioned in, I think it was 2006 plan, but a lot has changed. The township does a lot more things, and there's a lot more science and technology that can be implemented. So when with that $4 million, let's look at some stormwater solutions. And then the last thing I wanted to just mention in item K, the 237 Bryn Mawr Avenue project, I just had some quick observations. I don't know whether, from reading the packet, if there's any residents that live in that building. I know they're looking to build a bigger parking lot because they want to lease out to an attorney. My question is if you have rain barrels are only effective if you drain them, let them drain out during the dry weather, so there's some place for that storm water to go when it rains. If they're full, and it rains, that water's going to run off the land just like it would before the rain barrels. And then the other point, it does indicate that one of the reasons that rain barrels are being recommended is because the soils are poor infiltrators. But part of their stormwater solution is to put in impervious to put in 100% permeable pavers. So my question would be is if the soils don't allow infiltration, putting down permeable pavers may not give the solution that you need in order to meet the ordinance. So I'm just asking for consideration, and maybe the engineering department already has answers to that. Those were the only questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Good evening. My name is Jim Kristoff, and I live Kennedy Corner across the street from the Delaware County Christian School. And I was here, I think it was your November meeting, when I addressed my concerns about the lighting, the traffic, and the commercialization of the property that's happening in a residential neighborhood. And at the time I mentioned that we attended the Township meeting, but they wouldn't give us the ability to speak since we didn't have standing, and I requested any assistance that Radnor Township could give us. And so I'd appreciate your support allowing the solicitor to attend this Thursday's meeting in Township. And there are several other residents in the back who also are here in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
My name's Joanne Yuracek. I'm also Ward 4 near the Delaware County Christian School. And I just want to reiterate what some of my neighbors have said. In the residential area that we live in, we're very concerned about the quality of life, and it'll be impacted by the installation of the turf field, including the traffic, noise pollution, light pollution, and stormwater management. So I sincerely hope that Newtown Township will adhere to the established ordinances to protect both their citizens and the Radnor neighbors. And I feel that the Radnor solicitor will be invaluable in representing the township in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. John Velutini from Walnut Avenue.
Good evening.
In Ward 1. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the Wayne Business Overlay District and the study proposed. I'm very proud and fortunate to live where I do. Love to walk to Wayne and the many services and retail that area offers us. I moved here in 2011. I used to be in South Wayne, closer to Conestoga Road, and I went out of my way to move where I live today, and it's just great. And I certainly don't want to see it change, but I am seeing a little bit of change. And a gentleman here earlier mentioned it. It's starting to look a little sketchy. There's a lot of trash. There's a lot of patchwork pavement on the sidewalks and the street. We're missing a lot of trees. So I just wanted to ask the board to consider the study for the improvement, and to the extent that we can, to move ahead with some of the short-term fixes that were mentioned earlier, the new trees and the corners, et cetera. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Tamola. I live on Midland Avenue, lived in Radnor since 1979. This is about the Wayne Business Overlay District. I am very much in favor of plans. As you well know, I've been involved with comprehensive plans and other plans for the township trails, etc. However, I don't want to disappoint the Wayne Business Association, which I really admire, but I think this is perhaps poor timing to make this move. I think the township needs an overarching look at what's happening land use-wise. And this $4 million taken away from that cause would be detrimental to the strength of a new plan that we would have for the township. I think there are many things that do need to be improved. I walk to Wayne almost every day. I live in Wayne, but I walk through Wayne, the business district, every day. And that plan was started, the Wayne Business Overlay District, as a result of the comprehensive plan of 2003. Now it's getting updated, and the comprehensive plan has not been updated. And I really think we should have put our efforts into the comprehensive plan and have the look of everything that's going on in the township rather than this. I agree with you that there are many things that are not operating well within the Wayne Business Overlay District. One of them is that no one has mentioned, but when you go to cross the street there, God forbid that you would be handicapped, because you cannot reach the buttons to press to cross the street, neither at West Avenue nor at Lancaster Avenue and South Wayne. Maybe you can see it at North Wayne. But it's really a ridiculous situation where this is done to hopefully help people be able to cross the street safely, and it's not there. I dislike the idea of removing trees that are already there. I think we do this too frequently here, of having a tree grow to a certain maturity, and then we have a new development, we get rid of it. Well, no. How are we ever going to have a canopy if we keep cutting down all the things that are beginning to be our canopy? At any rate, I think this is a poor timing for this. I think it's a very worthy cause. I think we should definitely look for ways to improve the Wayne Business Overlay District, but not at this expense, and this expense in lieu of a comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Alfred Volanen, Malin Road, Ward 4. I would like to respectfully ask the board to support the motion authorizing the Township Solicitor to attend the Newtown Board zoning hearing regarding the Delaware County Christian Schools turf field project to represent the interests of the residents of Radnor Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Stark at 889 Westover Road in Ward 4, and I am just going to simply say please vote yes with motion P, because all my neighbors have said everything that needs to be said. Thank you.
Good evening. John McLaughlin from 813 Millmore Road. I'm here for the same reason. Item P, we could use your help. The township could use your help. Thank you.
Hi, John Snyder for Eddie Scott, the owner and developer of Ardrossan. I just want to report back to you from your last meeting that there's been a contract in place to do the tree work along private Newtown Road since last November. We have shared emails with the township every month, a couple, in fact, in February, from the contractor as to the work. The safety pruning was done prior to the start of December. The other work has been delayed by him because of the weather. I can assure you that there is absolutely no reason why my client would be involved in the scheduling of that to tell him not to do the work as soon as possible or anything in that regard. The contract's in place. The work is scheduled to be done. And I've brought copies of those emails for every one of the commissioners, and will provide them to staff so that you can have them. Work was commenced. It was a little drier last weekend, and so some work was done. 4 big truckloads of debris was taken out of there, and more will be done this weekend and continuing depending upon the weather. So we were told to report back. I just want to assure you that there's nothing that we would do to delay that project at all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Good evening.
Hi, Laura Luker, Ward 4, 808 Milmar Road, and I'm here for 3 points on the agenda. First is F, discussion and possible motion for the need of a tree maintenance care removal replanting program. I just want to say, rather than taking up your time, especially tonight, I would recommend a motion to have you guys set up a meeting or a forum to bring together all the appropriate departments, rather than figuring this out separately, bringing together the township manager, engineer, directors of Park and Rec, director of Public Works, part-time arborist, Shade Tree Commission, Parks and Rec Committee, and Radnor Conservancy. They all need to come together to understand the complexity of this issue. I see that the structure in our municipality has a big gap, and that gap is actually, there is nobody responsible for this type of forestry land management. We have a lot of parks, we have a lot of open space, we have a lot of things that really have not been able to be managed well, or it's managed the best that it can at the level that we have, but we have to increase it. My second point is O, resolution authorizing Campbell Thomas to complete the 2 grants. I just want to say that this project has been in progress for the last 3 years, and there have been monthly meetings going over this, trying to work with the consultants, the township, the stakeholders, to minimize the cost and try to get this project going. These 2 grants are really important. They're time sensitive. It's really important to use professionals to work on this, to be able to get the grant to be successful. And I would like you just to go ahead and be able to pass this. I am also, the third point I want to make is P, and this is what all my neighbors, and this is a neighbor, not a conservancy issue, but I would like to also encourage the decision for you to okay the solicitor to go to the zoning meeting at the Newtown Marple Township for the hearing, or for the hearing board for the Delaware Christian School turf field project. We really need to have a solicitor with eyes and ears on to what is going on in the township, and having the support to be able to know what the school is not actually saying all that they want or what they're supposed to be saying. So it's really important to have somebody there. So I encourage you guys to pass that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi,
Good
Matt
evening.
Marshall, 228 Walnut Avenue, Wayne. Speaking about the agenda items G and H regarding the Business Overlay District and the importance of getting this project started, I applaud the board and the manager for putting these 2 items on the agenda. The only thing I would say, and unfortunately I can't stay for the balance of the meeting, is that it should not have any bearing on the comprehensive plan. The Wayne Business Overlay District is completely separate and distinct from your other zoning districts. And if you think about it, we have planned institutional zoning that dictate things like the CICD, and the academic and institutional zoning, which has nothing to do with the Wayne Business Overlay District. I was on the Planning Commission when we created the Wayne Business District Overlay District, and I've been a part of that for now about 15 years. So I would implore you to listen to what the business owners are saying. It is time for a reset. We need to have Wayne look a lot different than it does today. to retain our businesses. And the last thing I would say is that make sure that some of the professionals in the community, particularly the landscape architects, are involved in the design work. This is going to be a very visible and important improvement in the community, and we need all the professionals that we can gather to create the best plan possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary Beth Willanen. I'm from 845 Malin Road on the Newtown Square part of the township. Been a 28-year resident, and I'm also here with my neighbors to respectfully request your support for the motion to send the Radnor Township solicitor to Newtown Township. And this is important if you're not familiar with that corner of the township. We are very neighborly with Newtown Township, and the impact to the neighborhood of having a turf field with lights and the possibility of renting this space out till late at night and on weekends would really have a big impact on the character of our neighborhood, the quality of the neighborhood, traffic, and you know the rest. So we appreciate your support in helping represent Radnor with this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Ken Kearns, 221 Walnut Avenue. I'm also a proprietor as part of the Wayne Business Association for 118 North, as well as along with Chris Todd, run the annual Wayne Music Festival every year. And I'm here, obviously, to kind of reiterate the points of the WBA on implementing and not delaying and not punting on a plan to do some immediate improvements in conjunction with the larger study to improve the Wayne Business District on North Wayne Avenue. Quite honestly, you know, the music festival is a day for this township to shine every year, and we attract a lot of people in from out of other areas that come to see our township for the first day. Hop off the train station at the Wayne train station, the first thing they see is, you know, something that has kind of gradually declined over the last couple of years in terms of its level of where it should be, consistent with the signs when you enter the township to say we are the best township on the main line. When you start to see some of the competitive sets that we're dealing with in the market with Ardmore and now Village of Valley Forge and some of the other areas where local businesses are competing with, we need to step up our game, and we need to do it immediately with some of the simple steps that Chris outlined. There's a real easy way to kind of make some immediate improvements that will have a very big impact on what the impression of this township and the main piece of this township in North Wayne Avenue are on very short order. And I do think it's important that people that volunteer their time and also that have investments in the township that are paying a mercantile tax get some reciprocation, which is kind of the simple ask, is that we're doing our part to help drive some business to the township and do our part to keep this township at the leading edge and have a reputation regionally in this market. We're just asking for a little bit of reciprocation from the Board of Commissioners in supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Oh.
One final one. Andy Dickerson, representing board member of the WBA, as well as Teresa's Cafe in downtown Wayne. Just real quick, circle back to the three things we were asking for was, help us pave the parking spots. You collect money on them. Let's make them look pretty. We can't even read some of the numbers. There's cold patch over many of the numbers, and the numbers are fading. Tree removal and planting is important, as well as landscaping the corners. I realize some of these points will be taken care of in the upcoming proposal and hopefully the plan later. But we just need to get on some of these possibly sooner than later if it doesn't happen to make things do something twice. I understand not wanting to do things twice, but certainly some of these items we can take care of in the immediate future because a plan and a large ask is going to be farther down the road than we have time for. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Helmuth. I handle the marketing and business development for Ame Salon and Spa. Ame is a full-service salon and spa located in downtown Wayne, across from the Wayne Hotel. The owner, Lori Pastor, has maintained a successful business for 19 years at our current location, providing jobs for over 60 employees. Ame continues to thrive, bringing an average of 40 new clients each week. It is very important to OMA that we continue to maintain and improve the Wayne Business Overlay District by providing the necessary funds to repave the parking lots, landscape the street corners, tree replacement, and consistent street sweeping. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment this evening? All right, thank you all very much for coming out. We appreciate hearing from you. All right, we will do a quick recognition of Women's History Month. Tammy Cohen was supposed to do this, but unfortunately she is under the weather. So I will just go ahead and read a short piece. Tammy was going to talk about the athletes that are featured out in the Delaware County Sports History Museum outside, but unfortunately I don't have that same knowledge as Tammy. So I'd just like to say, during the month of March, we give a little extra attention to all the amazing accomplishments of strong, determined women. Since 1987, the United States has formally recognized March as National Women's History Month to deepen our understanding of women's contributions to America and the world. Every woman has a story to tell and gifts to share with the world. I would like to take this moment to specifically honor the strong, dedicated, and compassionate women who live and work in Radnor Township. There are many. Across our township, women can be found making an impact as they teach, serve, mentor, care for, and respond to the needs of Radnor residents, young and old. There are many who have gone before us, and they have paved the way for where we are today. Happy Women's History Month to all the women of Radnor who are making history today and continue to pave the way for all women of tomorrow. So thank you. And happy Women's History Month from the only women on the Board of Commissioners. All right, may I get a motion to approve Resolution 2019-16, declaring community awareness and flood safety a priority and proclaiming March 25th, 2019 through March 29th as Flood Safety Awareness Week in Radnor Township?
So moved. Second.
Superintendent Flanagan, are you going to take this one?
Yes, ma'am. Under the direction of the Township Manager, the safety of our residents and visitors are critical. We have created a couple steps following our flood in 2018 to take action, improving safety, training for our township staff, water rescue equipment for the fire companies, the police cars. We're putting a quick picture up, very brief lineup. We also created an emergency resident parking zone, which will be doing a release following the commissioners meeting. These tags will be issued at no cost to any resident or business owner that feels that their vehicle may be affected by flooding, that they're able to park during a limited time, which will be posted on the website. So they can come in and get these starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. and we'll be able to record their information. Following that, we knew that public education was critical. So the public works staff has also been trained in water rescue, which I think is very admirable. And we'll be sending a mailer out to every resident and business in the township assuring that they know how dangerous floodwaters can be. And it doesn't happen often, but when they are happening more frequently, we want to make sure that is. In the future, we're going to be looking at signing the streets and putting water levels up, and we'll be working through the manager's office on that. We're also going to visit some of the specific community civic groups that are affected by flooding, such as North Wayne, Garrett Hill area, and anywhere else anybody would like to hear about that. This was a brief description of the acts that have been done in 2019. There's still more to do. We meet as a team every month to go over this and continue to make improvements to public safety in Radnor Township.
Thank you, Superintendent Flanagan. Does anyone on the Board of Commissioners have a question?
I just have one.
Go ahead, Chief.
Chief, are we any closer to getting to a point where we have an arm similar to what Lower Marion has to be able to block off certain areas that we know are that tend to flood more than other areas, so we can prevent drivers from going through?
We are working on some particular signage. The arm is being reviewed by Mr. Norsini, the Public Works. One of the issues, Commissioners, if we have a state road or something, we may be obligated to leave it open. The gates that Lower Marion uses are not on the state roads, they're right next to them. But we are working on that, and the signage that we're looking at actually will activate when the water goes high. So we're kind of excited about this technology, and we'll be bringing that forward in our future meetings. We just wanted to get this stuff accomplished for immediate results, but we are on it.
Any other commissioner comments? Any staff comment to the resolution on the floor? Any public comment?
Roberta Winters, 326 Williams Road. I was thinking that while we are sending out a mailing, and I assume this is to every person regarding stormwater and safety, that we may want to think of other safety notices. For example, call 811 before you dig because of natural gas issues, that there may be some other ways, since mailings can be expensive, that we might want to capitalize on this option to provide other emergency information to our township residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment? I think that's a great suggestion. I know people really appreciate it when they got the recycling brochure in their taxes, so probably the more information we can give, the better.
We're planning on including health issues as well, so it will be fully comprehensive.
Thank you, Mr. Zankowski, and thank you for your efforts. And thank you, Superintendent Flanagan. I know that you and the police have been working very hard to address the flooding issues that we do have in the township and make sure that the safety of the public is of the utmost priority. May I get I'm sorry, we already have a motion. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-16, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Appointments to various boards and commissions. Do you want to take that?
Could I get a motion for the appointment of Richard J. Weitzman for the Zoning Hearing Board?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of appointing Richard J. Weitzman to the Zoning Hearing Board, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. We continue to have vacancies, 1 on the Board of Health, 6 on the Citizens Audit Review and Financial Advisory Committee, or CARFAC, 1 vacancy on the Code Appeals Board, which will require either a master electrician, master plumber, or general contractor, 1 vacancy on the Rental Housing Appeals Board, 4 vacancies on SWIMAC, and 1 vacancy on the Zoning Hearing Board. Anybody who's interested in those positions should let us know. Thank you.
How many members do we have on CARFAC at the moment? Do you have that?
We have 4.
Do we have somebody that's interviewed that we're waiting on?
Yeah, so he was going to be resigning, I think, from zoning to come on to CARFAC, but he hasn't done that yet.
Do we have a time frame for that? Can we just email him and ask if?
Yeah, we did. He's waiting until, he was waiting until after this month's meeting, so it should be soon.
Okay, thanks.
So we actually don't have a vacancy on zoning right now because we just appointed someone.
We don't have an alternate? Oh,
No, we still do.
Disappear in a minute.
Yeah.
We will have a vacancy.
We will have an alternate vacancy, yes. Okay.
I just read this on the sheet.
Superintendent Flanagan, I am going to turn the unit citation for 3rd Platoon over to you and Lieutenant Dietrich. It's always nice when we get to recognize our police. Thank you.
Sergeant Lunger, if you and the 3rd Platoon would join us. Grab this. On Tuesday, February 19th, 2019, at 22:50 hours, the Radnor Police were dispatched to Unit Block at Doyle Road for the report of an intoxicated male who illegally entered and remained inside the home of a local family. The family was actually having a sleepover with the kids downstairs when this subject entered the property. Family members were helped tell the police where the male had gone to and believed he was possibly from the neighborhood. Members of the 3rd Platoon responded to the address provided on Doyle Road and secured the perimeter. Members of the 3rd Platoon, aided by the assistance of Police K-9 Bear, conducted a search of a residence and located the offender hiding in a 2nd-floor closet. Despite the offender's active resistance to police, he was taken into custody without any injury being inflicted to either him or the law enforcement officers from the 3rd Platoon. Whereas the Radnor Police located several articles of illegal narcotic paraphernalia, the subject was charged with burglary, resisting arrest, and drug possession. Whereas now therefore it be resolved that the members of the 3rd Platoon are awarded the Distinguished Unit Citation for their outstanding accomplishments as a result of teamwork that exemplifies the finest level of police professionalism in protecting the Radnor community. Job well done.
Thank you, Chief.
You get to take that. Hold on a minute.
I'd just like to thank the board for being recognizable and shaking everyone's hand. Thank you very much.
Ask Officer Mark Bates if he would come up. Mark has his wife and his son in attendance today as well. And I'd also like to acknowledge the other Radnor police officers and family members who are here to support these officers. On Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, at 18:25 hours, Radnor Police Department and the Radnor Fire Company EMS were dispatched to the 300 block of Eagle Road. Upon arrival of Officer Mark Bates, he was directed to the bathroom where a female subject was observed on the floor. While assessing the situation, it was immediately evident that the female required assistance and was preparing to give birth. Officer Mark Bates did assist the woman in labor with the successful delivery of a baby boy, a great story. Besides providing emotional support and comfort to the delivering mother, Officer Bates was able to relay information to the ambulance to make sure that they had the right equipment to assist them in prompt care. Now therefore be it resolved that Officer Mark Bates is awarded the letter of commendation for his outstanding accomplishment that displays the finest level of police professionalism in protecting the Radnor community. The family actually sent a letter, well-deserved, to the paramedics who responded from the Radnor Fire Company, and also sent several pictures of the baby to Officer Bates. All of that will be put in his file. So it's outstanding work by the Radnor Police.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the officers, and congratulations, and thank you for all you do for our community. Do any other commissioners want to say anything? Okay. Moving on. Item A. May I get a motion to approve Resolution 2019-25, authorizing the Township to enter into agreement for recreation and community programming department usage of Radnor School District facilities for the 2019 summer camp season?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Who, Mr. Zinkowski, who's going to be taking this, or is it self-explanatory?
It is, there is a summary in the packet for the board, so I think it's self-explanatory.
Well, they're in front of us also because they exceed the $7,500 limit. But this is an outgrowth of quite a few years ago when we eliminated the joint agreement between the school district for the fields maintenance. And now we pay rental for the use of school district facilities and the use of the buses.
Okay, any commissioner comment to the motion on the floor? Any staff comment? Any public comment? All those in favor of Resolution 2019-25, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Resolution 2019-26, authorizing the Township to enter into an agreement for recreation and community programming department usage for Radnor Township School District transportation services for Radnor Day Camp 2019. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I'm guessing this one's self-explanatory as well. Is there any commissioner comment on this one?
I just have one comment. A person told me, I don't know if this is true, that there's no difference in cost for summer camp for in-township residents versus out-of-township residents. Is that the case? And if so, why? If it's not the case, please let me know.
I'm pretty sure there is.
There is a non-resident
there is.
increase over what a resident would pay.
I know because when I signed my kids up, I noticed that.
Another thing, we also have quite a few scholarships associated with the program, and they're administered with the school district's help.
Any other?
Do you know what the difference in price is for people who are coming from out who don't live in the township?
It's $30 additional cost.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Is there any staff comment? Any public comment to the motion on the floor? Is there still commissioner comment? I'm sorry. Okay. Any public comment? And all those in favor of Resolution 2019-26, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Ordinance 2019-04, introduction, authorizing an addendum to the lease agreement by and between Radnor Township School District and Radnor Township for the property known as Emlyn Canal Park, formerly known as Converse or Rosemont Playing Field. Boy, that's a long time ago. All right, may I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Who's going to take this one?
I'll address it briefly. The township and the school district are subject to a lease which was initially signed in 1986. This is an addendum that the school district prepared, and the school district's already approved it, that would provide some additional terms, and it's related to the township's plans to install a comfort station at Emlyn Canal Park. So with that interest by the township, and the township basically covering all the costs for all of that, the school district requested that an addendum to the 86 lease be executed between the two parties. They've already approved it. You've got to approve this by ordinance, so tonight is just the introduction. It'll be advertised. It'll be coming back to you at your first meeting in April for approval.
Any commissioner comment to the introduction of this ordinance? Any staff comment? Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor of introducing ordinance number 2019-04, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, moving on. The open finance software presentation, as cool as that is, and it would have been awesome to have that, unfortunately, Mr. White wasn't able to attend this evening, so we will be tabling that for another evening. Mr. Zinkowski, have that? Okay. But everyone should go on and take a look at it. I mean, if you are a finance wonk and you want to drill down into the finances of the township, it is, it's pretty cool. On to item E, Resolution 2019-29, authorizing the removal of hazardous trees at Enke Park. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second? Okay. Mr. Norsini or, Steve, Mr. McNellis, thank you.
That would be me, Madam President. On March 16th, we had a 30-inch beech tree fall at the park, and it fell onto the Comfort Station snack bar. There were a couple cars there that it also struck. So after we removed that, we had the arborist come out and evaluate the area, and there are 14 more additional trees that have to come down, and that is this request here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McNellis. Is there any commissioner comment?
Did this go before the Shade Tree Committee that met after the incident, but before this meeting? So the Shade Tree would have met last Wednesday?
It did not.
Is there a reason?
It wasn't on the agenda.
Madam President, if I may, these are trees that were designated by the arborist as hazardous, and they need to come down. It is under my authority of the $7,500 to make this work, but because there have been issues in the past in questioning of the arborist's decisions, I'd bring this in front of the board for you to decide.
So to give you a little bit more insight, Mr. Zinkowski called me on Saturday night at 7 o'clock and asked if I could perform a risk assessment of the remaining trees at Enke Park. Out of the total of 87 trees, we spent about 5 hours doing a risk assessment. We found 14. The tree that failed because of armillaria root rot, which is very prevalent in this area in heavy clay saturated soils. This tree could have been prevented if we did a pre-risk assessment. If you go down to the actual concession stand and walk around the perimeter, it's very evident, even to a layman, the amount of decay that exhibits in this area.
John, you have the map. Can we show the residents the map of the trees we're talking about?
So,
Can we call up is it possible to call up the packet? So I just want to ask, so when you look at the map, you look at the aerial map, it certainly, looks like there's going to be a huge hole or two big holes left in that area.
Commissioner, if I may, so when I created the PDF, because of the Google Earth view, it was very hard to discern 8 specific trees and 6 specific trees. That's why I just created an area, and that is the general area of 8 trees to be removed, and the lower one is the general area of 6 trees to be removed.
So there's 87 trees within this area. There will be no gap or no destruction to these areas. There's sporadic trees throughout, and these trees reside right behind the concession stand and then right behind left and center field of the actual baseball. Yep.
And
Did you take a look at the trees that, if you go to the big Yankee field and you go to the outfield, there's batting cages right behind there, and you've got the creek right behind the batting cages. That's lined with trees. Was that area checked? That goes all the way down to the playground, and that has trees overlooking that?
We did not. We were asked to look at the trees near the concession stand and the road coming in where the beech tree failed.
And if we take down those trees and if we can approve a replacement plan or something like that, would it be easy enough to replace, well, not easy enough, but we could certainly replace those trees?
Absolutely.
Sooner or later, and not tonight, we really do have to come up with a policy that better addresses tree removal. I would hazard a guess, no pun intended, that about half the trees in this township could be deemed hazardous. Between the age of the trees and the use of road salt and the soils. So I think we need a policy that looks at the risk as compared to the area. Is it an area with a ball field? Well, of course you might want to address that. But if it's in a stand of woods, maybe not so much. Where we try to balance the risk with the canopy. The Conservancy...
You're correct, John, and it's called TRACK, and that's the program that we use, Tree Risk Assessment. And again, if you do not have a target, you have no risk. And again, it's a 3-page form that we fill out that gives a quantification that provides whether or not that tree is an actual risk compared to can we do mitigation options to manage it.
Right. Thank you.
You're saying that when you evaluate these trees, you evaluate them for the opportunity that they could fall on an area where there's people, where regularly. So that's part of the risk assessment.
That's a big part, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep, and it's quantitative. So I mean, there's a lot that goes into that risk assessment.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I fully support Commissioner Nagel's suggestion that we need to have some sort of policy, and I'm not going to be able to support this plan. One, I don't know why it didn't go before the Shade Tree Committee. I mean, they're the volunteers. They have folks on that committee that look at these exact issues. Two, similar to what happened in West Wayne Preserve, I can't support taking trees down in the middle of a wooded area. We start doing that, it's a slippery slope.
Jake, these trees are not in the middle of the wooded area. These trees are all within striking distance of the concession stand and the baseball field. It's not a wooded area. Yeah, the driveway can reach, the roadway. I mean, these are not in a wooded area, Jake, by no means. All within striking distance.
Well, and the issue that comes down to, and I know everyone is sensitive as well as we are sensitive of trees. However, when you have no program, no funding for a tree program, which we are at least 50 years behind schedule in, more trees are going to come down. When the assessment is done and you saw the tree collapse the other day, it fell on its own. We have a lot of trees that fall and drop limbs. So the issue that John looks at is, what is the liability from the township? So our job is to protect liability from the township. It is not where we are just randomly just taking trees down without any reason or any fact base behind that. However, we'd be more than happy to let the board decide, when trees come down and when they don't come down, and send them in front of a committee that, I'm not sure if an arborist sits on that committee or not. So, we'd be more than happy to implement whatever policy is necessary that the board would like us to follow.
So, Jake and John have talked about a new policy. And when are we going to get that policy? I mean,
we've never been given a directive.
I haven't looked at these trees here, but I've already got one thing I get calls about is why are you cutting down trees? I'm not cutting down any trees. I'm looking at what Steve highlighted here. It looks like some of those trees are far enough away that they're not in danger of hitting anything. I'm just looking at what was highlighted here.
You can't see the driveway that actually comes down through the canopy, so the driveway is in there. There's a parking lot on the west side of the building, and that's actually part of that is driveway. You just can't see it through the growth.
I would be happy to meet the entire board out on site, and we'll go through the tree risk assessment one by one with everybody on the commission at any time. I'm available Saturday, Sundays, evenings.
How about during the regular day?
Absolutely, Mr. Booker. You have to remember, my goal is to preserve trees, but my job is also to perform a solid, factual risk assessment throughout Radnor Township. And every tree there that Mr. Abel just mentioned that are in the middle of the woods are not. So, not to harm Steve Orsini here, that plan does not denote where those trees actually are. They are on the outskirts of the wooded peripheral, and right behind the concession stand. I mean, those are all within striking distance of either a structure or a resident baseball player, whatever you might have.
And John, if they weren't, that's part of the risk assessment, and they would, so that's something that wouldn't be checked off, and then that tree might stay.
Correct.
If it was just going to fall naturally into the woods and then become a place for animals to live.
Yep, this morning I did a risk assessment for a federal park, and there was 92 trees that they were concerned about, and none of them were a risk because they weren't in striking distance. We measured off the canopy, the rate of failure, and none of the trees were a risk because there was no impact, there was no target. So those are considered non-risk related trees. If they fall into the woods, not a big deal. There was no trail or roadway or pedestrian crossing there. Unfortunately, these that we're looking at tonight, absolutely there is a target in place.
Can we table this for when's our next meeting? We have a meeting next week and look at this so I can.
We don't have another meeting until April 8th. When does baseball season open? I believe April 1st. Who's got kids that play baseball? Commissioner Clark, Sean?
Yeah, I can call my wife. I think it's
It's got to be
2 weeks.
soon.
What is it, 2 weeks?
I've seen kids already out there practicing.
Yeah, no, the practices.
Yeah.
The practice is there, but it's like another week or so. Not this weekend, I think next weekend is open.
Well, I don't know about anyone else, but,
And we'll still have hundreds of trees that line the fields in the outfield. You're not seeing the second field toward the bottom there that has trees all around it.
So I don't understand what you're asking, Jake. You're saying you don't support taking these trees down, but then you want us to review the other trees? I'm sorry.
I mean, I think this is arbitrary. I mean, we're just looking at one section of trees. This whole park is trees. So once we start going and saying a tree could fall down, we're going to remove every tree in this township because people walk by trees all the time.
Madam President, that's not true. The issue is that if the board decides you want to table this, you can table this. If you would not like to take trees down, we don't have to take trees down. The other issue is I will ask the arborist to go and assess all those trees that were just mentioned from the baseball field all the way up to Ivan Avenue here to assess what their quality of those trees are. Based on just plain observation, I'm going to say that I would guess that some of those pine trees are not in very good shape and have outlived their life. So we will see a significant number of those trees. I'm just guessing.
Which
that
is
those trees are not in
why
good
we're
shape.
calling for a policy to have priorities. What's the priority? Trees in the right-of-way or trees in our parks that are in, wooded areas?
My priority would be in the right-of-way. The issue that I have, and we've talked about this, is tree branches and trees coming down and hitting wires and taking out electricity. And it's always in the right-of-way. It's always with the wires. That's the issue that I have. And I would love for those to be the priority, that we reduce that. Things have been quiet recently, knock on wood, and we hope we continue with the good luck. But my concern is in the right-of-way along the roadways, taking out wires for my neighborhoods. That's what I see much more as the hazard.
As I said, there were parents that came to help out at that field on a Saturday morning, and that tree collapsed onto the building and on cars. God forbid there were kids there, or that tree came down probably maybe a half hour later when others were coming there. That's what you have, and that's why hazardous trees are determined. So that's the board. It's your decision. I would never be in a position that when the arborist tells me that trees are hazardous, he's taken me out there and shown a lot of trees that are. So we'll follow whatever the board decides, whatever you would like to do, and have that policy established. Give us some direction. Give us some guidance and point us into what you'd like to see.
Well, that's really why I said what I did, Bob, is because we don't have that direction for you, and we need that. I plan to support this motion. Nothing in what I said was critical of John's work or of the staff. It's just bringing up a reality that we need to deal with, because we don't have millions of dollars to go out there and cut every potentially hazardous tree there is. So we have to come up with a policy on how we're going to address them. As far as wires, Rich, call the PUC. That's not township responsibility. That is either PennDOT or PICO. So, and they've been doing a pretty good job this last couple years. Unfortunately, they hadn't previously, and that's why the trees look like hell, because they haven't been pruned every year or every 3 years like they should be.
You got to remember, it's very easy to condemn a tree. I mean, like I mentioned, we looked at 87 trees in that area. To cover my own rear and my policy, I could have said, well, 6 of these trees were kind of iffy. We don't do that. We perform a risk assessment. It's quantitative, and that's how we produce the trees that need to be condemned during the project.
So I appreciate the work, and John, thank you very much for doing that, and Bob and the staff. I agree with with Jake and John. I think we do need to provide you with some direction on how we want to go with this. The next item is to talk about the need for tree maintenance, care, removal, and replanting program, because I think one of the things, if we're going to take trees down, then we should be replanting them. And I think that is definitely a conversation. I agree with Ms. Luker, who came to the podium and said that's something that should be done in collaboration, a collaborative group involving Shade Tree, the people who've been working on, so closely on this issue anyway, for quite a long time, as well as the Conservancy and others who've been involved in this. But personally, I cannot sit by and know that there are trees that have been deemed hazardous in an area where in about a week there'll be 1 million kids, families, parents here in the township. It's my responsibility to make sure that we keep those families and as well as our staff and people safe. We will be having events out there. We have a big event. Tammy always hosts an event out there in the summer. So I will be supporting this measure. I don't like it. I don't want to take trees down either, but if trees are potential hazards and they are going to fall in an area where people are, and we know that, then that is a liability for us, and that's not a liability I'm willing to accept for the township.
So actually, my wife texted me and said the first opening day is next Tuesday, but those fields are used constantly, especially this time of year. So whether it's opening day or it's just practice, and there's not enough fields. there's not enough fields. There's 5 or 6 different little leagues, from international to majors to minors to t-ball, so we're always looking for field space. So if a tree is deemed hazardous, I would certainly not want to go against what our arborist says, and if they need to come down for the safety of our children, I think that we should take his advice and then look for a longer-term plan thereafter. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comment on the motion? Any staff comment? Is there any public comment?
Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. I guess I've got on my Ready for 100 hat, and also as a landscape designer and a horticulturalist. You know, trees have a natural lifetime. I don't know the numbers of ash in that group that they have said should come down. Ash might as well go. We are not going to be, I suspect, treating ash trees at a certain expense.
Eight of the 14 are ash.
So those 8 trees, get rid of them. Take them down now while hopefully they're alive, because the cost of taking them down when they're dead, because the tree becomes quite brittle, is going to cost you a lot more than $7,500. The other piece you all need to keep in your memory bank is that with climate change, the effect on trees is going to be deleterious. Amount of water, humidity, insects migrating into this area that we never knew before that's going to damage trees. So don't think it's just, oh, we don't want to take down trees. There are reasons to take down trees. Age, condition, the type of tree, what has or has not been done with it, and the natural lifetime of a tree. So that I support this, because you can later come back and plant some new species of trees that are going to be better adapted to the change in climate that we're going to have. I don't know whether any of you know, but 4 years ago, the Chicago Parks Department developed a whole new list of trees, and they are planting trees that are currently appropriate for Atlanta, Georgia, in Chicago, because that's what's going to happen. What we've grown before and has been appropriate in this area for that time is gone, folks, because climate change is going to change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. I will call the vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-29, please indicate by saying aye.
Hold on. Before you do that, would there be any value in moving this Resolution 2019-29 after item F?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, a hazard is a hazard, and we need to get rid of them. So I would be opposed to that.
The motion's on the floor.
I haven't made a motion. I asked if there's
No, there's
any-
no, I mean, the current motion to approve Resolution 2019-29 in the position that it's in is on the floor.
So moved? Or we
It's already
did
been
that?
moved.
All right. All right.
I was considering moving to change its location in the
Well, I don't think we
in
need a
the
motion. Is there
agenda.
consensus to move this after the discussion of item F? I don't hear consensus for that. I will go ahead and call the vote. Resolution 2019-29, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-2. On to item F, discussion and possible motion for the need of tree maintenance, care, removal, and replanting program that is funded throughout the township. Mr. Zinkowski.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a topic, again, as we well know, that trees are an issue in the township. In the almost 9 years I've been here, we've had a lot of trees come down. We've had trees removed because of hazardous situations. We've discussed this. We had a presentation at budget time by the Shade Tree Commission, who made a recommendation of the funding that they believe is necessary, which is over $1 million per year. We've had the arborists talk to us about several $1 million a year that would have to be invested because we are at least 50 years behind schedule with the maintenance of our trees. As you're aware too, the Shade Tree Commission, we had 2 volunteer residents who have done a tree inventory of our Radnor Township trees that have given an assessment of the trees that need to come down into various states that they are in. I'm sure that the board has seen those, which are numerous. So this is something that I know we hear groups and organizations talk to us about trees and why they're coming down. We've heard discussions about replanting, putting them back in. However, all those take money. And you're 50 years behind schedule of where these need to be at. Also, because of whatever the decision was by the board many years ago, not this board, that we would take responsibility for the street trees, that those are on tree lawns and that those have become the township's responsibility. We have a lot of sidewalks that have been broken up. A number of those exist in the Wayne business area as well. So we have a lot of trees. Some are in dire straits. There's a fertilization program that has to take place. There has to be a maintenance program that goes with this, so a full comprehensive plan. So what I am looking for from the board tonight is to give us the authorization to start to put this plan in place, to start putting something together, engaging the groups and organizations, the Shade Tree Commission, which, again, I think they did a nice job at budget time in their presentation. So they are wired to that. We've heard from the Wayne Business District, the trees and those concerns, as well as throughout the township. So this is something we're not looking for money from you tonight. We're asking to actually authorize us to start putting things together so that we can start moving this forward. It's been at Parks Board. They've talked about this as well. Invasives, all these different types of things. It's not just a one issue concern. It's globally, and it's the long-term health and existence and the replanting of trees within Radnor Township.
Thank you, Mr. Zankowski. Is there any more discussion on the board? Do you want to, Commissioner Booker? You're moving towards your mic.
Yes, I was moving towards my mic. But if anybody else would like to go first, I would invite them to go first.
Anyone have anything to add from the prior discussion? Commissioner Booker, you're up.
So, Bob, what you're talking about is authorization to put together a plan to spend $1 million a year for a tree removal in the township?
No, this would actually authorizing us to start to engage groups, organizations, this board, the Shade Tree Commission, Parks Board, and any other board, the EAC, to actually start, how is this going to look at? Because I don't think we want to attach dollars to this, because I think it would be misleading, or everyone may shy away from saying, oh my, that's a big price tag, we can't do that. Is what do we really want to do? What does the board want to accomplish? And I think putting that all together and then engaging the board as to this work that's being done now, so that our hope would be that when it comes budget time this year, we'd be able to present a plan of how this looks in all these different phases. Because once you put it in place, you just can't, I don't believe you can put it in place and say, this is great, we've done this for 2 years, now we just abandon it. This is something that for the long term of the township, and something that every board can follow going on as they change, as staff change, managers change, everybody, that they know this is the course of action that should be followed.
How do the hazardous trees fit into this tree maintenance, care, removal, and replanting program? Is it a separate section? Is it covered by this, or is it separate?
It would all be incorporated in this. You have one comprehensive plan that pretty much addresses all of this across the board.
What's our process, if we have any, for hazardous trees today? How does a hazardous tree removal work? So we've had a couple of approvals, but how does it work from start to finish?
If we are made aware of a situation in which either a homeowner or a business, a commissioner, has a question on a tree, we then engage John Hosbeck to go out and take a look and do an assessment. There are times where John will say the tree is fine, it needs pruning, it may need deep root feeding, or the tree has to come down. There are ones I know at the Clem McCrone Park, when that project was being done, there were a number of big trees that had been flagged to say, please do not remove these. John had said these trees need to come down. I didn't believe John at the time, but when that tree got cut down, it's lucky that tree did not collapse because it was completely hollow on the inside of the tree. And we actually photographed a lot of those because we thought a lot of the residents were very passionate about those trees and that why would you just cut those down? But when you see how that tree collapsed on the inside, it's very clear that John had great insight and wisdom into what the health of a tree is, and those are the things we want to try to avoid. And I think as part of that, what Commissioner Nagel talked about, Commissioner Abel and yourself, about putting a policy in place. This way you're able to track that as well too and see that not only yourselves but the public, how this is assessed. And our community groups who are very wired to this issue, how do we arrive at these, that they're not just, we don't like that tree, let's just take it down or it doesn't look good. Because there are a lot of trees that are in great shape that we've gone out to. So John isn't just the axe man. He's been one to preserve, and then also with different type of feedings as well.
The complaints I've received are when we take down trees and the people say that they were healthy and that, you know, they're not always rotten on the inside. So how can we devise a plan to remove the hazardous trees that it doesn't shock people and that people don't question us?
I think as part of that, you would have, what John does is he gives a report upon the tree as to what the conditions are, if there's root issues, and I'm not going to get into the technical terms, that's something John can, but you'd have a report from John that would say, here's the condition of that tree and this is why, and even though it may be observed that it looks perfectly fine, here are the concerns that he has. And I know when we were on Morris Road there, I looked at one of those trees that I thought looked perfectly fine and healthy until John walked around to the back and pointed out some of the concerns to that tree and its long-term health. So I think that would be something that we'd incorporate, and the board would actually help to develop that policy.
I noticed you say that we're 50 years behind schedule. In the past, I think you said we were 10 years behind schedule on the tree maintenance.
I've said 50 years behind, but a 10-year plan for budgeting purposes is what you're going to have to come up with, because to us to budget out 50 years, nobody's going to be here in 50 years, so you're going to want something that is what's real and tangible and measurable for over those 10-year period that you're going to have to budget for.
Well, why not put some dollar figures on this so we have a sense of what it is? You're saying right now, start the process, and we have no idea what I think we do have an idea what the dollars are that you need. Why not put that on there?
We can do that. We can do that as well. We can come back with all of that and then work with the board on what you want to see based on all the work of all these our volunteer folks in the community.
And we talk about replanting as well. You heard Ms. Pilling, you know, the replanting, and Sean said, when she mentioned that, Sean said that they're talking about putting up coconut trees as replanting. We're not, how is the replanting program figure into this? Is it really something that we're going to put warm weather trees in our replanting program? Palm trees in Radnor, is that what we're headed for now?
I don't think we're heading that way. But you know, that's something that John is wired to, the type of trees and where they go, if they're street trees, if they're trees that go in parks, which ones are going to do well in their certain situation where, and they use downtown Wayne, the business area there, those are going to be within a hard surface, what trees will thrive in there, what kind of irrigation that will need to be done. So all of that is determined as part of those trees. So I doubt you'll see coconut trees or palm trees being planted anytime soon.
It sounds like you're talking about a plan to totally change the trees in Radnor from where we are today to a completely different look in a period of years or decades.
Not at all. I think we want to be able to preserve what we have that is healthy and that what we can save, and those that are problematic, we would look at removing those, but also going back with a plan that we're going to put trees back in the ground. So it's not where we just take them out and then we leave them go. It's when we pull them out, we're going to put trees that go right back in the ground.
Again, my concern is the large trees that are taking out the power lines, and you and I have met with PICO and the utilities about this issue, and we saw that it wasn't from this county, it was from Chester County. There's a movement of people that when PICO does go to take down trees, that they stand in front of the people, stand in front of the trees to block them from taking the trees down. So obviously there's opposition to just taking down trees for hazard or for the to protect the power lines, and I found that as well when I proposed something to remove trees that were affecting power lines. So how do we fix those issues while maintaining the public support?
I think you make some good points, sir, because the Public Utility Commission has set a standard which is probably the worst standard, because if you drive around our township and see these trees that you have arms hanging out on one side of the tree, or it looks as though a microburst tornado had gone through and wiped out half of the tree, but they meet the criteria of what has to be done. I don't know how. John, I'll let you speak to that issue, but you know, those are all concerns, and that would be something we'd have to reach out to our state reps as well as the PUC, as well as that standard has to change of how those trees are maintained.
Can I just suggest that PICO and what they do with their work is not going to be related to this plan that we are putting together. I mean, if PICO has to do the work, then they've made those decisions. They're going to be doing that work, and unfortunately, a lot of times we can't stop them. I think a lot of times they do too much.
We have to coordinate with them, though.
Well, we certainly can do that.
And my experience with PICO is that what they've said to me is, we would trim these trees for you, but your homeowners won't let us trim these trees.
Have you seen how PICO trims the trees? Come over to Darby Paley Road and see how PICO trims the trees.
Again, my main concern is ensuring that we have electrical power for all the people. It's uninterrupted, and we have instances where there's a safety hazard when we lose power for days, and the trees are definitely an issue with that. So that's my biggest concern. So this plan, I would like to see, the top priority is maintaining infrastructure for the health, safety, and general welfare of the constituents. Then number two, we would have the other maintenance, removal, replanting as secondary and tertiary considerations. So Bob, what do you need? What are this motion for the tree maintenance removing program, what do you need as far as manning, time frame, hours? What does the plan need? You said you're going to reach out to some of the affected constituencies and or input from township organizations, but what is the plan for putting this program together? How much does it, how many hours do you need, and what's the manning to do it?
Well, can I just remind, we have on, for September 16th, for the special meetings of the Finance Committee of the board, to talk about nothing but the trees and tree maintenance in the township. Bob, is this something you see starting now, and an assessment going through and having something for that meeting? Does that give you time? I mean, we already have, I think there's a lot of work already being done. I mean, how would you roll in what Matt and his wife, Matt Golis and his wife, have been doing, talking to the Conservancy? I mean, there's a lot of groups out there that are paying attention to the trees. Certainly John, as an expert.
I think a lot of work has been done already. It's a matter of now pulling it all together and getting everyone to understand of how complex this is, and then preparing that for the board for that meeting. I think we have plenty of time to be able to do that. Because
your goal would be to have this completed by September 16th.
I think it would be great, but it's going to be very hard to pull all that together, but we will do our best to be able to at least put the shell of that plan together of what it wants, because we need to engage the board in this process, because what we don't want to do is prepare something and lay it out for you and the board to say, well, we're way out of this.
So who's going to work on it, and how much time are they going to spend on it?
We will have staff, which again, staff works on trees almost every single day on this. We will reach out to the different boards. We will approach them, as well as like the Conservancy and any of these other community groups, to get involved and be part of this solution. I don't think we're we're going to get into the very fine detailed tuning of where this is without the board actually being engaged in the process to say you're heading in the right direction or you're off too far. Because then it puts everybody in a bad situation. One, it misleads groups that, okay, we're really going this way. It puts the board in a bad position to say, well, here's a $5 million plan. You know, why in the world would you know, that's not what we wanted. Give us something else. So I think it's a balance between everybody of how this is going to look and how this is going to develop. I believe we've got the people that can be able to do this.
So Steve McNellis and John Hosbeck would work on it,
I
or
think
would
you'd
they
have
farm that out to somebody or give it to their deputies?
You would have a lot of folks that would be engaged. From the entire staff would be involved.
And can we also put together a detailed emergency criteria so that the board can be aware of that? What's the criteria for emergency removals so that we have the board have some input in addressing that?
We can prepare that as well.
Thank you, that's all.
Sure.
Well, Bob, I think this is a great idea. We probably should have done it 5 years ago. You and I have talked about it in the past. Back probably when Steve McNellis was a young pup, we actually had a tree group. It was basically a dedicated parks crew. But we had climbers and cutters in that group, and those guys were well-trained. And that had to be mid-'80s when we did away with that, Steve?
He was still here in the 90s when I started.
Yeah?
Yep.
And for that amount of time, basically, everything with trees has been reactionary. And we need to start being, doing things with thought and pre-planning. So I think that's a great idea. Thank you for bringing it to us.
Hold on one moment. Is there any additional commissioner comment on the, as this part of this discussion? Jake, do you have anything to add? Sean stepped away. All right, staff, is there anything else? All right, Sarah.
I think an important component of this is public education. You do not plant a tree and walk away from it from 20 years and then look at the shape of it. Trees need attention. So we have this tree program to offer residents so they can plant a street tree. They need to learn how to take care of a street tree. Crossing branches, tight crotches, all the various factors of tree does not automatically grow the way we want it. And I think if you had a public education component, the people would begin to understand that if a tree gets to a certain age or a certain condition, you may not want it taken down, but for the benefit of the tree, the landscape, the health of the person who lives there, they need to understand that. And I think some of the resident resistance to the removal of hazardous trees, you'd get over that through public education.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else who has any public comment? I mean, we really aren't voting on anything. Or Bob, do you want us to vote? I mean, I feel like you have consensus.
If there's a consensus for us to move forward, that's good for
Well,
us.
I think you need a motion.
A motion to direct the staff to prepare a tree maintenance, care, removal, and replanting program that's funded throughout the township?
I think that's that's on the agenda that way. I think that's what should be said.
So moved.
Can I get
Second.
a second? All right. Do we need any more discussion now? Is there any more public comment? Okay, I will call the vote on the motion for the need of a tree maintenance care, to direct the staff to develop a tree maintenance care, removal, and replanting program that is funded throughout the township. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Was that a yes or a no, Commissioner Booker? I'm sorry. An aye, okay.
That was an aye.
You looked a little doubtful, okay.
Well, it's so broad. It's funded through the township, throughout the town. I mean, it's very concerning to have such a broad motion, but what are we going to do at this point?
Okay, so the broad motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Farhi off the dais, or now he's on the dais. All right.
Make him vote.
Mr. Zinkowski, do you feel like you have what you need in order to get started? Okay, very good. And I'll just take this really quick moment to plug the free tree giveaway from the Radnor Conservancy. So you go to the radnorconservancy.org and you can sign up to get a free tree, and they are giving them out on Saturday, April 27th and Sunday, April 28th, but you have to sign up for it. And I heard today there's only 120 left, so of the 320-something that they had originally.
And we will be there to teach you how to plant the trees and how to maintain the trees. So there is a public education piece to it.
Great. Thank you. And thank you to the Conservancy and the Shade Tree and everyone who cares deeply for our canopy here in Radnor. Okay, on to Resolution 2019-30, authorizing staff to prepare a scope of work and Thomas Committa Associates, Inc. to submit a cost proposal for landscape, public improvements, planning, permitting, engineering, and design for the Wayne Business Overlay District. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Zinkowski.
Thank you, Madam President. Bring this forward for the board to consider. It's been a while that we've been discussing this. 2016, 2017, 2018, we had discussions about enhancement, reset, rejuvenation, all of those terms about making the improvements in that area. The first plan that I'm aware of that was submitted, which is this Thomas Committa plan, was on actually September 11th, 2006, was the first time this plan. So we are 13 years from studies, and no effect to this board, but we have a history of studying things and not doing much with those studies. We have stormwater projects that probably 50 plus years, 75 plus years that we haven't built a stormwater project. We have a lot of studies that we do. And this one here, we've had a lot of discussions with. I understand the concerns in regards to parking lots and that. It's been one of the items that you cannot use liquid fuels for. The state has to approve those. They have to be used on the roads. They can't be used in the parking areas. Those lots need to be done. We had a lot of utility work that was done, bringing power, the replacement of the power lines that were in there that basically was chewing gum and bubble gum that actually held those together, and it's been replaced. We had gas lines that were brought in. We spoke to PECO. I know Chris and I had worked with PECO to try to get them to do the sidewalks, which was not successful with that. We talked about doing lighting. We talked about the enhancements to that area, that when you do these types of things, when you replant, when you take the old trees down, you know, you make an impact, and this is something that you don't repeat within a year or two or three. I'm a big believer is you do it right the first time, and then you install it the right way, and then you have an impact. I agree with what a lot has been said. The area has become tired. Whether we agree or not, we are in a competitive climate. We have the shiny new penny that sits up in King of Prussia, which is probably an awful scenario for anyone to try to get to. You have Westchester that has made improvements. You have Phoenixville that is making improvements. Newtown Square that is making improvements. Ardmore, Lower Merion making improvements. We need to be competitive. I think that's what we need to do, and a lot of it is the looks, the feel of what we have. I understand the replacement of trees. We need to do that. The corners that need to be done, those types of things. I think that's short term, what we can do, but the long-term plan really needs to be done and funded. Again, I'm not a big one that, I mean, we've been talking about this for years. We know it has to be done. When we look at maintenance in that, we had a plan in front of the board probably like a year ago, I would say a year and a half ago, about putting a full-time person from our public works staff on every day down in the district, in which we didn't move forward on. It's something that I know from our side for economic impact, economic sustainability, we need to invest back in ourselves about what we do. This is a big area for us, for the community. There are other areas in the community we need to invest as well. But this one, again, 2006 was plans. We know that you have money that sits out there with the enhancement trust money that was mentioned before. I think we're sitting probably $80-some thousand for that. That can be utilized very easily to be made into there. I know that the township has given money to the WBA in the amount anywhere between $11,000 and $13,000 per year. You know, those funds, you know, we can work collaboratively with them. It's just, I guess from my perspective, it's now that we need to do this, no more studies, and we move forward with it. So it's my recommendation that basically both G and H, I understand until the board actually says this is a project, these are what the cost parameters are, you know, the borrowing of the money, but I think that a commitment that everyone knows in that area and the community that this board's committed to seeing this project move forward. I'd ask the board to consider option G right now. H, I would understand if you wanted to hold that one or table that one till we had the numbers. But on the interim basis for some of the items that have been looked at, I think there are dollars that are available that can be utilized to be able to make these enhancements and make them quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Zankowski. All right, is there any commissioner comment to the motion on the floor?
I'd like to say three things quickly on this. The first is that I think that the old plan that we have had for the Wayne Business District has been an anchor around the neck of the WBA and the other businesses in the area for a long time because it has been so expensive. And the problem has been that we have said we don't want to do these small incremental projects because if we do, they're going to interfere with the larger picture that we are aiming for at some uncertain date in the future. And as a result, those small incremental projects don't get done, but then we keep not funding the larger program. This is an opportunity for us to right-size the project to something that we are, as a board, willing to pay for, because thus far we haven't been willing to pay for the larger project, and we haven't found the money from other sources. We can work with the WBA now to right-size this project with Tom Committa and find something that we can actually commit to doing in the near future. So this is something that I'd like to do. It also costs us nothing. Right now, the only thing that we're voting on is just saying, prepare a scope of work, and then let's go to Mr. Committa and ask him for what it would cost. And we'll come back at a later day and decide whether it's worth investing in, but this is the first step. It's important for that first reason. The second point that I'd like to make is that the WBA and I have been working on a grant proposal that we think is going to be successful. We have high hopes for it. This is a necessary component of that grant proposal. We can't go to the state and say, we would like to have your assistance funding a project, but we've got no drawings, there's no engineers involved. We just kind of want to do some stuff to sidewalks and trees, and we'd like lights maybe. So if we're going to get that additional funding, and we think that we can find significant funding for it that would not impact the taxpayers, then we needed to have this engineered drawing. So I'm going to ask for it for that reason as well. The third point that I'd like to make, though, is that this does not address the concerns that were specifically raised by the WBA members at the beginning of the meeting, which is they want these short-term solutions to the trees, to the sidewalks, and to the parking spaces. I'd absolutely like to see that on the agenda at the next meeting, but I want to make clear that this is in addition to and not instead of that work to the people who've come out tonight in order to make their voices heard. So I'm gonna ask that we include what you have specifically asked for at the next meeting, and I'll do so more formally later on. But I wanted to make clear that this is not something that is intended to supplement what you said. This is something that is intended to supplement, not to supplant. Particularly given what I led with, which is we keep putting off the short-term projects in favor of the long-term projects. So with that in mind, that's my 2 cents.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have a couple.
No,
Sean, go ahead.
No, Jake, no.
All right, thank you. So Thomas Committa, does he get anything out of the work he's doing if we approve this in terms of cost?
That has to come back to the board for approval. Now is just reaching out, and I'd had Steve work with him from the engineering aspect to define a scope in that. So there would be no money that he would be making right now to prepare anything. This would basically be developing that scope of work and putting a proposal together to come back in front of you.
But he develops the scope of work, he's bringing it back in front of us. He would be the likely?
Commissioner, I will, I'm going to interrupt. I'll create the scope of work.
Okay. Well, okay, but he.
I mean, so he's not designing his own bid, so to speak.
But he's going to bring a proposal, he's going to bring a plan back to us that we're going to vote on?
It would be a cost proposal. And we also, the manager was talking about perhaps bringing one other firm in, and that would be Gilmore and Associates. They have some really good folks. So that might give you the ability to have, you have two prices, and that way you have a sense of scope and magnitude of what the project is, and it's not just based on one. But Mr. Committa is very, very well known in the industry, and Gilmore does a fine job too.
But traditionally, would this be something that we would get 3 companies to provide bids for?
So for professional services, you don't need to do any bidding. You could just pick one firm, get a proposal, work with that firm on that cost proposal. You could do a very select small group, or you could do what we did for our consultants, which was post on pen bid, and then that's just wide open. I would not recommend that for a project like this.
We also have a firm here in Radnor that I think would be very good at competing for this work, and they're located within the downtown Wayne area, so I would recommend that would be the 3 that you would get.
The nice thing about Tom's Committa, regardless of who we go with ultimately, is that he has done the plan previously. So he could work with the WBA to present a menu of options that they could choose to delete from the existing plan when they're right-sizing it, whereas somebody new would have to start from scratch. It might ultimately be more expensive to go with Mr. Committa than someone else, but my anticipation is there would be a cost savings there.
Okay. And then I just have one final comment on something Commissioner Larkin had mentioned about still bringing up the 3 points the WBA had emphasized, stressed, and reiterated multiple times at the beginning of the meeting. Is your inclination to group those together? Because I think the trees would take longer, and probably resurfacing the parking spots may take a little bit longer. I mean, I would like to move forward on items that we can all agree on immediately. So the 3 intersections at Luella, North Wayne, and South Wayne. I mean, if we can all come to a point next week where we say, yeah, let's beautify those, we move forward immediately on that project.
I would certainly support that. I'd suggest maybe we have 3 separate agenda items then, so we can approve or table or whatever we want to do with them, and just go forward with as many as possible.
I think that's the best way to go on that one.
Sure.
All right, thanks.
So first of all, I think it's great that a lot of members from the WBA came out to. I met with them to say their concern. I think it's important. I hear it loud and clear. I think also what you guys said was reasonable. You're not asking for the moon and the stars. And I took a tour. I think we all did. I think I was the last one. But we all took a tour, and we saw it firsthand. And I think that it's reasonable, and it should definitely get some attention. So with that said, I guess the parking lot next to the library or across from the, what is it, Spuzio, is that part of the overlay?
No, Commissioner, so that's a previous project that was awarded, and we'll be coming back to this board with the request to go to bid.
Okay.
That was part of the Ithan Creek Midland flood mitigation project.
So my question is how is this all going to tie in together? I know, Jack, you've been working with Meliora for a lot of stormwater stuff. I know that's kind of up in the air as you go out and try to get grants. So if you can just kind of take all these different pieces, maybe not now, maybe the good time, and that's what this, scope, this proposal is going to do. But if you can kind of, at least, if you're ready to kind of educate me on how these moving parts and this whole big master plan as opposed to, not doing it 3 times, I want to say halfway, half-baked, instead of just, it's what Bob said, doing it one time, getting it done once.
Sure. I have a detailed plan to deal with that specific issue. It's called Steve Marsini's in charge. No, in all reality, we don't want to plant trees and then have to take the trees out again 2 years later. We don't want to apply for a grant and then say that we're going to have to completely redo the parking lot because of stormwater issues a few years later. With respect to the specific vote that we're talking about right now, Mr. Norsini is going to be in charge of preparing a scope of work. He's the person who would be in charge of making sure that we weren't doing those sorts of things in this project. With respect to the grant that I'm chasing right now, Mr. Norsini would have to be involved, as would other people from the township, both on the front end in order to make sure that the design that we ultimately have is not going to conflict with other programs that we have. We have grants right now in that area for sidewalks, so we don't necessarily want to duplicate those. On the other hand, there's some sidewalks where we just don't have enough money, even with the grants, to do them. And it might be nice to see if we could have some additional funds in order to make it possible to walk to Wayne. And that's an area where we're going to rely on the township. And ultimately, of course, we have to be responsible in the back end as well to administer any grant funds that we have, which means that everybody who's going to be part of that has to be checked in. So it's a definite concern. It's well outside of the scope of my expertise that I'm going to rely on Bob and Steve and Bill and everybody else in the township.
I have to say, I have no idea what anybody is talking about here. What park, we have some sidewalks that have grants, but we don't have enough money for it. We have this, we have 2,000. Listen, what we should do is have a design competition. We want to have some improvements in Wayne. Let's talk to some folks. Let's even get a planner or a study. We need to have some concept of what this board wants to pursue. We should not be just deciding to go out to one person and say, give us something. We should have some meetings and some discussions about what it is that we want to do, what this board feels comfortable with, and what we, irrespective of cost, I mean, the cost, whatever the cost, this is high, this is too high for me, but we talked about $3 million when I met with WBA, so it's got 25% higher all of a sudden. But irrespective of that, it's not even an issue. The issue is, what is it that we want to pursue? Let's talk to some folks. Let's get a sense of what this board wants to pursue, and then we will narrow it down to what's the design and what's the permitting, engineering, design, et cetera, for the Wayne Business Overlay District, and how that's going to tie in with the vision that this board has.
Commissioner, that's
second, let me just go see. Second, the issue with this project is we have a meeting that Ms. Borowski insisted that we need to have a meeting for capital projects on the 29th of April. So when she scheduled it, I said, no, we don't, let's talk about the projects. So this project is a very worthy project, but it needs to be put in context with all of the other projects that we are going to do and talk about on the 29th of April. So I'm not sure how this one got in front of all the other projects. Seems like people were being particularly favorable to Jack Larkin. I'm not sure what happened here, but this is a good project, something that we ought to pursue, but it needs to be in context with all of the other priorities for the township. And we have that scheduled to review on the 29th. Is it the 29th or the 25th? 29th. So I would say let's talk about it on the 29th and get it in whatever that is in the pecking order that this board wants to put it at that point, and we will figure out what the best way to fund these projects are. I'm not particularly hung up on this project being funded through grants. People, you all need to know, and what I met with Superintendent Flanagan this morning, and he said to me the same thing, which is, you pay for it no matter what. A grant is just money from another government entity that took money from the taxpayers in a different way. There's no difference. So the state takes it from you for your personal income tax and your sales and use tax. The township takes it from you in business privilege and mercantile tax or property tax. The issue with this is we had talked about bond funding, and if we're going to borrow money, now's the time to do it. Interest rates are as low as they're going to be, and this is a good use. So let's put this in the program. Let's get this teed up to do it, but we don't need to set aside a certain contractor right now. We need to put it in context with our overall capital budget and capital project program. And we need to also better define what we think the cost is going to be. $4 million might be the right number. $3 million is what we talked about earlier this year, and maybe it's a different number than that. But we need to decide what that is first. So I don't think this is, I think this is half-baked at this point and not ready for a motion from this board. I'm hoping we can table this at least until April and put it on the program there, and I assure you I'll be supportive. I think that the business folks in Wayne bear a great brunt of the tax burden for the township. The business privilege and mercantile tax is a 3 mil tax. As far as I know, it's higher than other neighboring locations that have a business privilege and mercantile tax. It's on 3 mils, $3 on every $1,000 of gross receipts. So any one of these businesses, if they have $100,000 in revenue for the month and they had $110,000 in expenses, we still want them to come across with the $300, right? The $300. It's a matter of no matter what, it's a gross receipts tax. You pay it. I think they deserve special consideration for that, and it's not just Wayne Business Overlay District. There's also Garrett Hill, and there's a business district that's in the 7th Ward as well. We don't want to forget them. All of these business owners pay additional burden. Whether they make money or not, they owe this, and we need to be cognizant of that and make sure we address the needs of the business community through this and or other considerations. However, in this case, let's decide what we want to do and put it in priority. Let's borrow the money, and let's get grants after the fact. The issue is let's do what we need to do, what's good for the township, what's good for the businesses, and what's good for the constituents. We'll worry about the grants later. So let's put it into the 29th and go through it at that point.
So I appreciate your support on this issue, and I look forward to it on the 29th. Right now, we're not dealing with the $4 million issue. That will be the next item on the agenda. Right now, we're just talking about going to Thomas Committa and asking and preparing a scope of work for him. With respect to your proposal on that issue, which is that we should, instead of asking for now a scope of work and also going directly to Thomas Committa, who has familiarity with this issue, I'm not wedded to Thomas Committa in particular. I know he's very good at this. I've worked with him in the past. I think that he'll do an excellent job, and I think because of his prior history with this area, he's going to be able to do so in the most cost-effective and expeditious manner possible, which is important. But your suggestion that we should have studies and we should have additional meetings and we should send out RFPs and we should all of these other things as a precondition to even discussing getting the money for this is at odds with your proposal that you're willing to fund the project. And it's instead symptomatic of exactly the problem that has gotten us here in the past, which is we're going to study everything to death. We're going to do a zillion different RFPs. By the time we're done with that, it'll be a new fiscal year. We'll have a new budget. This won't be included in it. There will be new members of the board who aren't going to be devoted to that. That's exactly, I think, ultimately what you're looking for here. And
that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is a concept. We need to develop a concept plan that we're going to pursue. We need something to look at.
Commissioner Booker, Commissioner Larkin was speaking.
Well, you just let Jack talk again. So listen.
But he was speaking. He
spoke, and then I spoke, and then he just spoke again. Okay. So let me speak. That's not what I'm talking about. And I've met with Blackney Hayes as well. Blackney Hayes is another one. Let's get a couple of people to come in and give some concepts for us, and then we pick, and then we pursue.
There's a motion on the floor to close debate on this item. Do I have a second on that? Okay. Is there all those in favor of closing debate on this issue and throwing it to staff and then public comment, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Jake, how did you vote? I'm sorry. Did you vote no? Okay. So motion passes 5-2. So debate on this issue is now closed. Staff, is there any comment? Mr. Norsini, I know you'd wanted to try to say something earlier.
I apologize for, so I just want the commissioner to know, part of the scope of the work is design charrettes with various stakeholders. It would be the WBOD, the WBA, folks that live around Wayne, the board. So there would be a large decision-making process in what would go into Wayne, and it would take into consideration all the stakeholders. And this board is obviously one of those groups of stakeholders. So whether it be a subcommittee or however you would want it to work it, but so they wouldn't come with a predefined idea and say, this is what we want to do. The whole purpose of it is to take everybody's input, come up with consensus, and then that would be the design with everybody's involvement.
Thank you, Mr. Norsini. Any other staff comment?
Sure. Just to the point there, you will pay for design charrettes to have 3 different plans, or if you want 4 different, you'll pay for those. Nobody's going to come in and do that elaborate detail without paying, so you will pay for that. And then more than likely, you will see the lowest and the cheapest bid come in there. That's not going to satisfy, I think, what you want. So you're setting up a failure situation. I don't think it's the appropriate use of taxpayer money. I do agree that this is long overdue. We can always debate the taxes, because if we do away with those taxes for the businesses, we'll have to find another source. So I'm not sure if you're proposing a real estate tax increase, but
I wasn't proposing changing the tax structure. I was recognizing the particular burden that's on the businesses.
It's staff
But I
comment.
think as part of that it's a reinvestment back into the community. They provide a significant amount of dollars to the township. It's reinvesting back into it, which communities that are competitive, stay relevant, reinvest into their community. And this is where I think we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zinkowski. Do we have any public comment on what we have, the motion on the floor at this moment?
Real quick, not going to beat the dead horse. You've all heard the 3 motions we talked about before. I do want to thank Bob and Steve Norsini sincerely for moving this forward, as well as Jack and everyone else up here involved. Even you, Rich, we all had good meetings. You're more on the same page than you realize. I just want to see this continue to move forward. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for the debate. Again, I just want to reiterate, you guys really are, you're more in agreement than you realize, okay? You're almost saying the same things, but just differently. Jack, I commend for all the support that you've put into this. You're really working hard and taking a great interest. You've had great ideas. And literally, you guys are agreeing with each other. So what we need to do is get to that, on the meeting on the 29th. Let's have a nice plan about the big stuff. But just remember, in the interim, there's 3 items. Well, there's 2 items that are important. Mainly 1. Even just we need to do something to get the place looking good. Okay. I'll reiterate, repaving. I know it's a long shot. Landscaping the corners, something different. People can see that immediately come spring. And then trees. Trees, you don't have to, we are not condemning, or we're not recommending planting trees and then pulling up in 2 years by any far stretch. Okay? So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Madam President, just to that effect, if the board is okay, we will come back with a plan on April 8th of the short term that the board had discussed for your consideration and for the WBA
That will involve
to look at.
the three things.
Those
that I think
items
have
that
been
were
asked.
discussed tonight that we're being looked for.
Okay. Thank you. Cheryl.
Cheryl Tamola. At any rate, what I would like everybody to do, and I know that you are all really very busy people, as are the people who are running businesses, but in the comprehensive plan that nobody remembers anything about now, there is a whole business element that has to do with what we should be looking for. And it was never addressed due to the fact that shortly after it was approved, we went into our financial decline period. So none of the ordinances ever got in place. It would be, rather than hiring someone to look at these things, it would be really good if somebody could study what's in there, because I looked at it recently, and I know there are things in there like hiring a Main Street manager. And that seems like a really expensive thing to do, but it's not. I mean, in some way, we need to find someone who's going to recruit people to occupy those businesses. So that's what a Main Street manager would do first. And I know that they did that in Westchester. So, at any rate, and that's a community that everybody seems to favor what they've been doing with it. So I think that that's an important thing, to do your homework before you even ask anybody to, God bless you, address this. I know that probably the people in the Wayne Business District have already done this, but the Board of Commissioners is going to make the final deciding on this, and you really ought to know what's in there also. There are plenty of suggestions, and I think that that might be educating yourself before you make a decision would be a really good move. Also, I recently went to a meeting at the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, and one of the things that I learned from that is that they have a program where they know what is in the hopper for all of these utilities, what's going to be happening. And you can plan according to it so you don't do things like repave the parking lot before they put the sewer line, before the sewer lines get in, all of that kind of stuff. So I would definitely want you to connect with those people. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any
Roberta Winters, I would just like to reinforce what Mrs. Tamola has just said. Frequently, I come before this board when you're talking about development issues, CICD districts, variances, all those kinds of things, and say it's really important to regard the comprehensive plan before you make those decisions. I think that plan is a value, and if it's not a value, we need to have another one. It's important to follow the rules rather than to change the rules depending on whoever's come up before you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Matt Marshall, 228 Walnut Avenue. And the reason I stayed for this portion of the meeting is I noticed there are not significant residents from either North or South Wayne in attendance and speaking tonight. But I want to tell you, a lot of my neighbors have been talking about this issue. And sometimes we take the lead from the WBA, and I think they've done a great job in framing the discussion, but it is really important to the residents and the taxpayers. This has a lot to do about property values. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal last week about the decline of the appeal of large homes. Wayne has a lot of large homes. Millennials in particular are not moving back into these big homes. So we need to keep our business district in Garrett Hill and in Bryn Mawr and in Wayne as vibrant as possible so we can drive more demand to these communities. And then I guess secondly, and just kind of finally, there may be 4 of you who will not be sitting at the end of this calendar year in your seats, and I think this board collectively understands how important this is. And I would like to see this board in particular get something done around the improvements in Wayne and then continue to maintain the downtown as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Tim Fry, Williams Road. Tonight I've been listening here, and what I've heard is discussion about trees, about roads, about business development, about the overarching aesthetics and stormwater. We've heard about climate change and environmental issues. These are all parts of a puzzle, a comprehensive puzzle, that all need to be addressed. This is a great first start in developing what could be a really prospective view for the rest of the township. I think that's something that needs to be developed. I think it's something that should be further enhanced even. You're looking at individual issues that are not isolated issues. They all work interchangeably with each other. Discussion about how the roads and when they get paved as to when you do the development. These are all complicated issues, and I understand the complexity of these, but it's not isolated to just the Wayne Business District. This is something, what I would love to see is to see a comprehensive aesthetical view from one end of Lancaster to the other end of Lancaster, because when you're talking about what draws people to this area and what will draw people to businesses in this area, you're looking at how people come into the community and what draws them there. and a comprehensive, unified approach, I think, where you're looking prospectively and looking at the future. I think I laud you for trying to push this forward, Mr. Zinkowski, because this is something, along with the trees, that is something that can't be done immediately. It has to be something that is done over time, because I think we are reactionary too often and not looking proactively and prospectively, and we need to look now at the future that we want later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Kearns, 221 Walnut Avenue. I think to break this up a little bit, to your point, I don't see there's any harm in having other people bid and submit other ideas for some pragmatic approach to looking at plan. However, you'll know if there's a more efficient way, and if Thomas Commit is halfway there, that we're going to find that out in the bidding process. That's fine. More importantly, the point is, what we're asking for is this immediate interim step for some of these, the three items we've identified, which we can quantify pretty quickly, I would imagine. We could probably have bids before the 29th on those items, just to have an idea of a framework of what that's going to cost for the interim steps while we're developing a more comprehensive plan. If there's dollars available that are sitting there waiting to be spent on things like this, we shouldn't wait and kick the can for a comprehensive plan. Yes, that's important, but I said earlier, this needs to be done in conjunction so that this doesn't continue to get worse. I know you guys did the tour of it. I walked around yesterday taking pictures, and it's a little embarrassing, and there's things that are easy fixes that we could have done we could probably have completed before the 29th meeting that everybody could live with. That's not something we're going to rip out later, but I do think it needs to be broken up into bite sizes that we can absorb and people can understand that we're not just throwing money away, and especially if there's dollars available already to do so. So just appreciate that, and I do agree. I think everybody's saying the same thing in different ways. But I think there's a smart way to do interim steps here to get some immediate impact. Thank you.
Also, Bob, we talked about that 80,000. If there's 80,000 in Wayne Enhancement Trust, let's get it and address that. 80,000 will probably take care of the stuff they want.
We already sent an email.
Okay, is there any additional public comment to the motion on the floor? All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-30, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-1. All right, on to item, so a motion authorizing the administration to prepare legislation to borrow $4 million for the landscape public improvements, planning, permitting, engineering, and design for the Wayne Business Overlay.
Madam President, if I
Yes.
may, I'd like to ask that this be withdrawn at this time until we actually keep putting the pieces together.
I would absolutely agree, and I
we
think
can discuss that on the 29th.
yes, on the
with
29th.
others. Yes.
So I agree with Commissioner Booker that we should discuss that on the 29th. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Rich and I agree. All right, on to Resolution 2019-17, 106 Cambria Court, Planning Module. Mr.
Madam
Nacini?
Chairman, this is very, we've had these before. So the applicant needs one EDU, 262.5 gallons per day. They're required to complete the planning module process. The final step in the planning module process is a resolution from this board, which is included. So I'd respectfully request that the board approve the attached resolution for the planning module for 106 Cambria Court.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner comment? Not hearing any comment. Staff comment? Hearing nothing. Public comment? All in favor say aye.
Are we going to just go through? Is there a drawing or anything?
Aye.
It's in the packet.
It's in the packet. Why don't we give it to the public so everybody can see what we're talking about?
Don't seem to have
This
any
is for a
comment.
two-lot subdivision. This is solely the sanitary sewer portion of it.
We're voting, I said aye.
Yeah,
so-
I'm calling the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
There we go.
All opposed say nay. Vote passes
5-1.
5-1 with Commissioner Borowski off the dais. Moving on to item J, Resolution 2019-18, Ardrossan lots 3-2, 3-3, and open space 12, final lot line adjustment. Is there anyone who wants to introduce this?
Commissioner, so this was before the board for caucus. So this is a lot line change. There was a question brought up by one of our residents, and Mr. Kachansky, our zoning officer, did reply. That was the late addition to your packet. And in response to the concern for the one lot that was smaller, I quote Mr. Kachansky, "Given the diversity in street and lot layout and frontage variations, it appears to me that the proposed lot line change affecting Lot 3-2 is no different than what was contemplated during the conditional use and land development approvals, and appears to be consistent with the intent and objectives of the density modification ordinance provisions." So we were asked to look into this for the board, so I'll give that to you. Their attorney, Ms. Jung, is here, should we need to hear from them. So this is a vote on, this is the actual vote on what you saw last month.
Okay. Could I?
I move to approve this.
Is there a second? In that case, would you like to come up and give us any additional information?
Or public comment, too.
I would note that when I look at this, there's a real significant improvement in the open space in that it provides a much broader corridor between two of the other open space pieces, which is very helpful for the critters, if you will.
Good evening, Jamie John here on behalf of Christopher and Kathleen Marr. Mr. Snyder was here earlier, and I think he had addressed the issue about the trees that were brought up at the last meeting. I don't have anything further to add.
Okay. Is there any commissioner comment?
Yeah, but if anybody else has anything, I'll let them go first.
I'm just going to go to staff comment in a minute, so talk fast.
So the issue with this is that the density modification has nothing to do with what the requirements are under the zoning. Interior lots need to have 2 acres. So the concern is that we're not in compliance with the requirements. And then, again, we got a message from Mr. Gemmer earlier today talking about the same issues, and I'll invite him up to go through this. I haven't had a chance to go through it. But there's a two acre minimum. This is an interior lot. It should maintain the 2 acres. And just disagree that we should allow this and say that it's in conformity. So I think it would be helpful, once again, to put, I don't know why we don't want to show any drawings at this meeting. We don't want to put anything for the public. We want to just talk about it. But I think we should show what we're talking about here. This is an interior lot. And the open space, I would remind everybody, the open space is not for the public. It is for the people who live there in Ardrossan. There's no public access to this open space that we're creating. So, you know, if you would, go ahead and address the issues if you like here.
My understanding is that Mr. Kachansky has done a zoning code review, and he has determined that there aren't any issues with the size or configuration of the lots.
Is there any other commissioner comment? Staff comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Vote passes 5-1 with Commissioner Borowski off the dais. Commissioner Borowski, we are on to item K.
Thank you very much. I just first would like to know, are you all off from Eastern University? All right, well, thank you very much. Are you guys here for a class? Yes? All right. Well, thank you for coming. And I don't know if you're, we're sorry. Your teacher assigned you to come here. No. We hope we're exemplifying good governance, if that's what you're studying right now. And welcome. All right, on to item J, Resolution 2019-18. Okay, sorry. No, oh, you guys already did Ardrossan? You did 2 things while I was gone? Okay. We are on to K, 237 Bryn Mawr Avenue, waiver Section 245, Article 3, drainage plan requirements, and Section 245, Article 4? No. Yes, 4, stormwater management.
Move to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Norsini?
Madam President, the applicant is proposing to expand the driveway by 991.5 square feet and replace 215 feet of existing walkway. Infiltration at this location, at this site, was 0 inches per hour. Due to the lack of infiltration, the applicant is required to request a waiver from the noted items from the Board of Commissioners. In lieu of being able to infiltrate as required by our ordinance, the applicant is proposing to use permeable material for the driveway addition and the walkway replacement, as well as 2 65-gallon rain barrels. And attached are the review letters and plan.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the 2 questions that Mr. Stein asked earlier. And I'm guessing that he was asking, who's going to be responsible? Is there anyone here to represent them?
So Roman Carape, the owner, is?
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Roman Carape. I'm the principal of the company that purchased 237 South Bryn Mawr Avenue. And we've been working with the township engineer in Mominy to come up with the best environmental approach to this. And to answer the questions, I certainly represent that we will monitor and manage the rain barrels. That's why they're there, not to overflow. And the other question was, I believe, if the clay soils currently don't absorb water, how will what we're doing change things? Well, it actually will improve because we will have 8 inches of a mixture of stone that will detain some of the water rather than surface runoff. So a lot of the properties in the area, if you're familiar with them, are heavily paved. We're trying to do something a little more environmental, and I hope you can see your way to the waiver.
And does this mean we're not going to continue to have those issues with trucks parking in the street? And
absolutely.
The previous tenant, we had a lot of trouble with.
I'm aware of that. That will not be the case.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there a drawing we can put up for the people so that we can see the site and the,
It was in the packet.
Yeah, there is a drawing in the packet, Commissioner.
I know, but some people are watching this on television, they'd like to see it.
Well, they could go to the website while they're watching TV.
They could download the packet. I have just a quick question. So the water's obviously going to run off down into, I guess, the creek on that runs parallel to Ithan Road. Am I correct?
No, this is on Bryn Mawr Avenue and Moore.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be helpful if we knew where this was so that we had a drawing and we could look at it.
John, can you let everyone know exactly where this is, please?
Property is located across from Barrack Academy. It's the corner property of Moore and Bryn Mawr. And the water will go to the storm sewers, just like everybody else's does in that area.
I think it's real important that we make it, let the public know what we're working on and talking about, and show drawings and show concepts as much as possible. And so I think it's an important element of our service to the public as public servants and representatives of our constituents.
Okay, is there any more discussion to the motion on the floor?
Can you just?
Yes, there is.
I'm sorry, Jake has a question.
Go
Do you mind?
Can you point out the sidewalk area that's going to be the permeable surface?
There is no sidewalk on Moore Street. The sidewalk is on Bryn Mawr. It's unaffected by this, on Bryn Mawr Avenue. There are no sidewalks on Moore.
Mr. Carpe, the commissioner is asking, in your memo from Mominy, it said you were going to replace 215 square feet of existing walkway. I believe that's what he's asking.
I'm sorry. I thought you said sidewalk. Walkway is, when you look at the pink box in the sketch on the left, it's kind of on the extreme right going up to the building, kind of an L. So that's going to be replaced. It's currently brick pavers.
Okay. And so you'll maintain that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I've gone over to the Stratford Business Center. I think that's the Stratford Business Center. and they've got a section that has similar surface, and it works amazing. So I like the idea. This is the first time I've seen an applicant come back and offer this. I wish more applicants, when they're coming in for waivers, would have something similar, because I think it does a tremendous job soaking up the water.
Appreciate that.
Well, the whole point of the waiver is that it doesn't soak up the water, right? It doesn't perk. So even though it gets through the pavement, it still won't absorb into the ground. Now, I guess what our applicant is saying is that there is some capillary action and some additional storage under the pavement from the rocks, I guess. I don't know. But if it doesn't perk, then it doesn't make any difference. And that's what the gentleman who came up from the River Creeper Association said. If it doesn't perk, then putting permeable pavement doesn't make any difference. Right? right. So here, this is the same issue that it's every meeting. What did we start out tonight with? We have a flood mitigation because we have floods in Wayne. We have all these different programs with the police, and we want new equipment, new machinery. We have rescue vehicles for the floods. And then later that same night, we have an applicant who comes in who wants to get a waiver from the stormwater requirement, which requires infiltration into the subsoil, thereby reducing the off-flow of stormwater into the storm drains. The waivers exacerbate existing flooding problems. There's hundreds of waivers we've given to make all of the flooding in Wayne worse. So we have government granting waivers to everybody who wants one, and then government taxing people and coming up with new government programs to deal with the flooding that the government caused. That's what we're doing.
So
I'm speaking, Commissioner. I'm speaking.
Gentlemen, please.
Now,
Commissioner Booker,
in this
can you wrap
case,
it up?
yeah, I will. So in this case, as in all of them, we should not grant a waiver because we're making the flooding worse. If we're going to grant the waiver to everybody who brings a request, let's change the stormwater ordinance and not require infiltration. I am daring you, all of you on this board, to change the stormwater ordinance and take out the infiltration requirement because you never require it. It is an anathema to good government to require stormwater infiltration on our zoning code and then to waive it for everybody who comes and does it. Let's waive it for everybody so that nobody has to deal with it.
Mr.
Again,
Booker,
this is the same thing. I'm not going to vote for this. We shouldn't. We're making problems worse, and we have the public and the folks from the stormwater experts talking to us about this. Let's just waive the requirement. Let's just change the ordinance and eliminate the infiltration requirement because there's no desire on this board to maintain that.
Okay, thank you.
as usual, Mr. Booker completely misrepresents what our code says and what the stormwater issue says.
Accurately represented.
Shut up. Will you
Excuse me,
please?
gentlemen, please.
What about-
Please,
What
gentlemen.
about the civility right there? That wasn't civil,
Okay.
was it?
Commissioner Booker,
anyway-
Commissioner Nagel, please.
The ordinance was designed to include the fact that you may not be able to infiltrate. And as we were told by Roger at the last meeting, many projects come through that do infiltrate fine. So we're not granting waivers to every person that comes in. We're granting waivers
That's
to...
not fair then, is it?
Rich,
Commissioner Booker, please don't interrupt.
we are granting waiver to people because the ordinance was written to say, if you can't infiltrate, you have these options, but you also need to go to the commissioners so they can sign off on it, basically. It's to give us control, and in this case, they have satisfied the requirements that are provided. That's been attested to by our engineer. So there's no reason not to approve this.
They didn't satisfy the infiltration. They didn't satisfy the infiltration. What you said is inaccurate, right? Hello? I'm right here.
Commissioner Booker, please.
They didn't satisfy the infiltration. That's the point.
Okay. Gentlemen, please.
Anyway, I'd also love someone to show me how a drainage issue in Bryn Mawr is affecting downtown Wayne, since it's a different watershed. That's just absurd. There isn't a flooding problem at this location now, and it's going to be an improvement, is the bottom line.
Again, we should just get rid of the requirement so
Commissioner
nobody
Booker,
has
you've
to
made
deal
that
with
point
the
perfectly clear
infiltration.
on multiple occasions.
Let's make it fair for
Is there
all
any other
developers.
commissioner that
Make
has
it
a
fair for all
comment?
developers is all I'm saying.
Is there
Close debate
anyone?
on this issue?
There's a motion to close debate.
I'll withdraw. Sounds like this is a
Okay.
legitimate comment.
Okay.
Steve, can I just ask you for clarification? So on this permeable walkway that they're installing, what will the impact be?
So Mr. Stein from the Riverkeeper asked, can they come into compliance? Well, they can't. That's why they're here, right? So we got that. So they cannot do groundwater infiltration. So for this square footage, you would be required to dig a pit, either fill it with stone or use a cistern to handle an inch of runoff from whatever new impervious surface you're doing. They can't do that. So what they're saying they'll do in lieu of, and there is no specific guideline whatsoever in our ordinance that requires them to do this. They could come to you before this commission and say, we just want a waiver. So what most do, we all ask them. It's not a requirement. We ask them to do something. So they're using these permeable pavers. Commissioner Booker is correct. They're not going to infiltrate. What they do, what his engineer pointed out, is provide a certain amount of storage. So really it becomes like de facto rate control. It's going to hold some water for a bit, and then eventually it's going to run off. The same thing with the walkway. The rain barrels, they're going to hold 130 gallons worth of runoff until somebody goes there and uses that to water the flower beds or whatever. So it doesn't meet our ordinance. Are they making an attempt? Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? All right. Is there any staff comment to the motion on the floor? Any public comment to the motion on the floor? All right. I will. So all those in favor of granting the waiver to 237 Bryn Mawr Avenue to Article 240, Section 245, Article 3, and Section 245, Article 4 for stormwater management, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-1. On to L, Resolution 2019-19, appointing QCI Incorporated as a township site work and capital project inspection firm. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any commissioner comment to the motion on the floor? Any staff comment?
Wait. So, Bob, is there anybody else bidding besides QCI? And does QCI have an office now in this area, or are they, where?
Commissioner, I'll jump in on this. So in your packet, a year ago, we received the request for we received our proposals. They were sent to this board. We had 6 firms submit proposals for this project, for this contract. After issuing the RFP, we received the 6 firms. We actually, if you'll look, there's a recommendation to the manager. After interviewing the firms, the short list was reduced to 2 firms, QCI and T&M Associates. Understanding that all firms are of quality in their own right. Based on additional interviews, QCI had 2 very good attributes: their inspection services and contract administration services. QCI provides very strong contract administration services, and the current inspectors provide proper inspections and communications with applicants in the township. They have the ability to increase staffing. QCI's fee, as noted on the scoring sheet, is equal to 2 of the other firms at $80 an hour, with an average of all 6 at $77.97. In the long run, Quality Cold Inspections Incorporated is recommended by staff. This memo was to the manager, so staff went through the interview process, as did the manager. 6 firms were brought down to 3, down to a short list of 2, and we recommended QCI.
So just to remind everyone and to remind the public, I believe it was last winter, the board voted to go out for prepared RFPs for these services. Later, once these proposals came back, these were all shared. Everyone received them. And it was decided, the board decided that this was a decision that, to allow the staff to move forward, have the interviews for the three that we are appointing this evening, the three positions we're appointing this evening, and to come back to us with a recommendation. And that is what they're doing tonight, after a very lengthy process. So that is what we have before us.
So is QCI the cheapest one?
No, sir, they are not. The majority of QCI's billings are reimbursable. We use them for our subdivision and land and development inspection. And if it is used for a township project, we get a proposal for capital project inspections. But no, they are not the cheapest one. We feel they are the best qualified, and therefore they are the best value.
What's the difference in cost? I'm looking here at the memo. It says $80. The average is being $77. So is it $3? Is it $2 an hour difference? Is that what?
No, so if you go to the spreadsheet that's part of the packet, DUMAC was 64, Geostructures 56, QCI. These were like averages of the scores, 85, 84, 81, 78. I don't have, and then on the bottom line, it shows what the inspector costs are. DUMAC was 80, Geostructures was 70, QCI was 80, Remington Vernick was 80, Temple Group was 70, 84, and T&M was 87. They weren't the cheapest nor the most expensive.
So what would be the annual, I guess, is really what we're looking at rather than an hourly, because we don't really know. There's one that's 56, it looks like here, right?
That's correct, sir.
There's one that's 64. Why wouldn't we go with the lowest price bidder?
Well, they're not, that's their score.
Oh, okay,
was 64 and 56. The lowest scoring company was $70. The second lowest scoring company is the same as QCI, which is the same as Remington and Vernick, and they are all less than T&M at 87.
What about the 70.84, right?
Right, the Temple Group. So if you look further up in the memo, we came up with a short list. So
they didn't make the short list.
They did not make the short list. So of the short list, you had QCI, T&M, Remington, Vernick, Engineering. So of that short list, T&M is at 87, and the other two are at 80.
Does anyone?
And the 70 was the low bidder that we rejected. Why didn't they make the short list?
So if you want to go back to the scoring sheet, we talk about strength of proposal, relevance to Radnor Township, personnel, depth of firm, and value. This is all based on the proposal. They were the lowest scoring of that group. So again, with the motto we look at is we're looking at value, which is what we're getting for the township's dollar. So you're not getting value if you're getting an inferior product at a lesser rate.
And Mr. Nocini, you said that most of the services provided by QCI are reimbursable.
Unless they're for a capital project of ours, when they're out inspecting, grading permits, or land development, they're all reimbursable expenses.
Well, it seems like the value with the dollar should have a higher weight, is all I'm saying. Right? Value is, especially if the constituents are paying for it.
So
Madam President, if I may, that's why I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, we invited the board over a year ago to sit in those evaluation processes, which we had no takers. The recommendations were made to the board. We had asked the board to meet to discuss the recommendations, which did not occur, so that's why they sit here today. So these were all good questions that we would have enjoyed the board to participate with us and asking the questions, scoring these. And I'm sure Commissioner Brooker, you know the lowest bidder is not always the best. And we can say that based on this building that we sit in, and I'll probably end it at that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we were offered that opportunity, and at the time, it was consensus that, or everybody individually spoke and said, we trust the staff to make these decisions and bring forth a recommendation. So is there anyone else who has a comment to the motion on the floor? Any additional staff comment? Any public comment? And I'll call the vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-19, appointing QCI as the Township Site Work and Capital Project Inspection Firm, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Resolution 2019-20, appointing Gannett Fleming Incorporated as the Township Subdivision and Land Development Review Firm. May I get a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Nursini, do you have anything you want to add?
Madam President, there were 9 firms. They were brought down to a short list of 4 firms: Gannett Fleming, Bergman, McCormick Taylor, T&M Associates. These folks were all brought in for 2 rounds of interviews with staff and the manager. After reviewing the short list, Bergman was eliminated from the mix. I know you have this, you've read it, so I'll just go to the more salient points. Gannett Fleming provides the best service in saldo and general permit processes. The saldo reviews are pass-through costs incurred by the township and then passed on. Based on performance, Gannett Fleming provides substantial value. The saldo projects can be large and complex with many outside agencies and firms as part of the mix, and Gannett Fleming has done and should to continue perform at a high level. Gannett Fleming Incorporated is the firm being recommended to the township manager. Again, this memo was to the manager for land development review and associated engineering services. There is a scoring sheet that follows with the 9 folks with the various categories and explanations of the categories.
Thank you, Mr. Nursini. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, Commissioner comment. I see that Bergman and, it looks like Bergman and Carroll, and forgive me, but this is on the side, it's not, if we could in the future, since we don't have a printout, if we can put it in a horizontal or landscape as opposed to a, what do you call that? Portrait, right. So we can see it. So I'm looking at it sideways, but again, we had cheaper alternatives. And we eliminated, Bergman and looks like Carroll were you know, they looked like there's a bunch of them that were on the short list that we're eliminating. So can you go through why you eliminated those?
Commissioner, there were 2 rounds of interviews with staff and the manager. Through those interviews and additional questions, we came to this conclusion. Again, we didn't base it in the old days. When you used to do RFPs, you actually got 2 proposals. One was a cost proposal that you weren't supposed to look at until you went through the interview process, and you chose on the best consultant. So after 2 rounds of interviews with these folks, staff's recommendation to the manager was Gannett Fleming. It was based on what they offer and how they work in managing our saldo, as well as other issues should we need them. They are here. They are a multifaceted engineering firm that has many types of engineers on hand. We've used it on many a time. But the reason we came to this through that interview process was we felt that they were the best firm.
And what in the interviews swayed it for you?
Madam President, if I may, this again goes back to numerous times I'd asked the board to sit in on these, to go through that.
If I missed that, I should have done that. I apologize.
Well,
I would have happily sat in on this.
Well,
and I did look at this a year ago. I did look at this,
Right.
and I had not heard that we were having interviews. I would have happily been there.
The board knew of those because, as I'm sure you read my manager's updates, which I know you said you specifically put that aside for special times to read. You would have seen the invitations in there numerous times asking the board to participate in those, and we had no takers on those. So Steve, taking his experience in that, of looking at the criteria, asking them, relating to the projects that face at hand, the response in the entire process of reviewing the qualifications of a firm, who they would be able to provide to this township, the expertise and all that goes into that, which again, if you look at the scoring sheet there, it's pretty detailed of how Steve had set these up, and it's very good course of action to evaluate.
And I'm looking at that. I guess my question is, are we sure that you're just not comfortable with many years, I don't know, it's 5, 10, or how many years we've had Gannett Fleming, that you're more comfortable with them rather than going with the newer, lower cost provider that might actually be better?
Commissioner, we
No,
did-
I would just say no, because actually we have come to this board and we've terminated several firms, engineering firms that did not perform. So we pretty much have a good idea of what the expectation level, which is very high. So I don't think there is a comfort level that we just go with.
In this case, we look at the scores, they had 82, and Gander Fleming's 82, and Bergman was lower cost.
That's where the interviews come in, Commissioner. So these scores are based solely on the paper submission that that the commissioners received about a year ago. The interviews is where all this is expanded on, and that's where the final recommendation was made. So we did take it very seriously. I want you to understand that. There is no, we're comfortable with anybody. So when we brought these folks in, it was with the full intent, may the best firm win. We had an extended meeting with McCormick Taylor. We had them in here twice. T&M Associates was in here 2 or 3 times. So we did go through the process. You asked us to do it, and you asked for a recommendation. This is our recommendation. I don't have more detail at hand.
Well, again, we have the scores are equal, and we have a lower cost one. I would urge the staff to reach out to develop new talent, new service providers, to have more than one vendor to go to, so that we're not reliant on them and they're not reliant on us for revenue. And we may actually improve our performance, and I think we have room for improvement for these reviews. So,
Okay, Commissioner Booker, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any
you're
comment?
welcome.
Is there any additional staff comment? Is there any public comment to the motion on the floor? All right, I will call the vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-20, appointing Gannon Fleming as the Township Subdivision and Land Development Review Firm, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Next, Resolution 2019-21, appointing Gilmore & Associates as the Township's Traffic and Transportation Engineering Firm. And I think that I will add, Mr. Norsini, they were the only ones that submitted. Am I correct?
Correct, Madam President. They are the only
Okay.
ones.
May I get a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Any commissioner comments?
I did hear from at least one other, and this was a year ago.
Mr. Booker, we asked for RFPs went out, and firms needed to apply. One firm applied, and that is the firm we're evaluating this evening. Mr. Norsini, would you like to
Excuse
speak to
me.
that?
Excuse me. I haven't done my not done my comment.
I would like to hear from Mr. Norsini first, please. Mr. Norsini.
Wait. This is commissioner comment. We'll
No,
talk to him. We'll talk.
Staff, he hasn't introduced what he needs to first tell us. Thank you. Mr. Norsini.
So only one firm provided a proposal for traffic engineering services, Gilmore & Associates. Amy Kaminsky was appointed as the township's traffic engineer to a 2-year contract approximately 1.25 years ago. This is back in July. Amy has provided meticulous traffic reviews for our Saldo projects, provides substantial value for her work in Radnor Township, is very responsive to issues that arise, and has proven herself very capable in traffic signal design. Gilmore & Associates is proposing to keep the rates the same as their previous contract. The recommendation, again, this was to the manager, was for the professional traffic and transportation engineering services is Amy Kaminsky, Gilmore Associates.
Thank you, Mr. Norsini. Any commissioner comment?
Yes, I have some.
All right.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, we do have a motion. It's on the floor.
So when we have a motion, generally we have commissioner comment after that. So I'm surprised that we had
Oh, usually staff.
does it, then we do a
tells us-
motion.
No,
So
Rich,
yes, that's how we do it.
Rich,
In
would you
any-
like
in
your
any
time
event,
to comment?
yeah,
Because we're going to close the debate.
Yeah, that's right. Why let anybody else talk when you decide what you want to do and you're just going to close it up?
Because you haven't talked enough.
No, I
Please,
haven't. This is another contract, isn't it? This is yet another contract where we are not changing. We didn't even look at anybody else. Now, I heard anecdotally.
Nobody else applied.
I thought you said you were going to let me talk.
I just am saying no one else applied.
Okay, well then let me speak. You're interrupting me, aren't you? I heard that at least one person was going to bid, but asked if we were really serious, we were going to actually hire anybody else. the word on the street that I got from secondhand was that, oh, Radnor isn't even, this is just fake. They're not even really trying to find a new vendor. So again, I think that we are overly relying on a few people and not reaching out to develop new consultants and new talent to come and serve the township. And I'm very concerned about that. And this is the same. We've had all of these contractors, QCI being the shortest one. The other two have been for many, many years consecutively. And really believe we need to work to develop and extend our consultant pool to have additional alternatives, if not replacements.
Commissioner, I'd just like to add.
Madam President.
Second.
Okay.
If I may.
All right. Can you just hold on? There's a motion on the floor right now to close debate. All those in favor of closing debate on this issue, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Commissioner Booker and Commissioner Abel, did you vote nay? Okay, motion passes 5-2.
Madam President, if I may, just to respond to that issue, I don't go much on second or third hand information. What I will go is on first hand information, that the reason why firms don't want to work here is because of actions of this board, lawsuits being filed against the actions of boards, actually comments being made to actually defame those firms, which we've been fortunate enough that we have not been sued by. I think that's why people are not coming here. That's why, again, too, this was an open process for anyone to come in. I'm not sure where or when you heard it, but this is the first time I've ever heard it in over a year that this has been out there for the board.
I heard it over a year ago.
Well, I'm glad you passed it along 1 year later to us, that we have no idea what's going on.
Being asked to vote on it 1 year later.
Gentlemen.
Well, the issue is no, that's not true, because we had asked the board over and over to meet on this and discuss, and that you failed to do that.
Mr. Zinkowski?
So now, no, I think this is important because there was an issue that was given to the board to decide on comments made by a commissioner that were defamatory, that were actually saying that people were on the take, and this board has not acted on that. That went to the district attorney's office. So,
Mr. Zinkowski. Is there any additional staff?
Can't imagine why we didn't get any proposals.
Yeah. Is there any additional staff comment? Is there any public comment?
Roberta Winters, I would just like to note that I've heard mention to the civility comment, and I would also like to mention that sometimes repetition is important, but sometimes it is overdone, and I think we need to be thoughtful about people who listen the first time and understand without feeling that we need to hear it over and over again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winters. All right, is there any additional public comment? All right, I will call the vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2019-21, appointing Gilmore & Associates as the Township's traffic and transportation engineering firm, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
A.
Motion passes 6-1. All right, thank you, and I'd like to thank the staff. I know this was a long process, and thank you for your work. And we are looking forward to continuing to work with these firms. Under Resolution 2019-24, authorizing Campbell Thomas and Company to complete a DCNR, C2P2 grant application, and DCED Greenways, Trails, and Recreation Program grants for the Radnor Trail Extension in the amount of $7,250. May I get a motion to approve?
Second.
All right. Mr. Norsini, you introduce this for us?
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Madam President. So as you noted, this is to authorize Campbell Thomas to apply for 2 grants for Radnor Township. This is for the Radnor Trail Extension. I'll go right to fiscal impact. The cost to prepare the grant applications is $7,250. Should we be awarded the C2P2 grant and/or Greenway Trails and Recreation Program grant, The township's match will be $150,000, which is a 50% match, cash and non-cash values, and $37,500 respectively. So our maximum exposure, if we're awarded the C2P2, is $150,000, which is a half match. And if it's the Greenways, the DCE, the other grant, it is $37,500, which is a 15% cash match.
And Steve, I think you should point out that that's within the current budget for that trail extension. So this isn't new funds that are necessary.
Correct.
And those funds are from is that from the bond? The bond? Okay. So that money is already budgeted, correct, Mr. Norsini?
So there's money for the Radnor Trail. I mean, several years ago, we didn't foresee this grant application, but yes, there's money for the $7,250.
Okay. And this is, Commissioner Nagel, I know you know a lot about this. This is for the extension to go, but a kind of a different
Well, in the
take on
past,
it?
we've talked about doing the extension, and the design was fairly extensive, and we were unsuccessful in getting grants. One of the major pieces of the design was the underpass under Radnor Chester Road. Campbell Thomas identified a way that we can break this project up and accomplish the objective, which is the extension of the trail ultimately. And that is to do a walkway from King of Prussia Road down alongside the trail so that you would still come up the way you do today, but cross King of Prussia Road and there would be the appropriate signalization and then go down on the other side. And it had to do with a closer evaluation of the way the road bed was laid out for the train. Most places, the road bed was hard against the right-of-way on the northern edge of the right-of-way, but when they got down to the bridge, the tracks moved to the center. So it turned out we had some space we could work with there that we weren't aware of previously. So it can all be done in the right-of-way, and it'll give us an access. And then in the future, when we move to do the underpass, it can be a much smaller underpass, which will reduce the case dramatically. In fact, the calculations show if we have this access, it would be totally offset by the reduction from the reducing the cost from the huge culvert we needed to a man-sized culvert.
And this is for Radnor Chester, not King of Prussia, right? Radnor Chester Road.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Is there any additional commissioner comment?
Is there a drawing we could look at that you might want to show where we're talking about? You said it was Radnor Chester, and Commissioner Nagel said it was King of Prussia
I
Road.
think he just misspoke.
Radnor
It's Radnor
Chester.
Chester. It's right at the end of the trail where the extension's always been planned, where it dead ends into Radnor Chester, to go across Radnor Chester and extend.
Again, it would be helpful if we had a drawing. I don't know why we seem to not want to show drawings. At the risk of repeating myself.
Okay. Is there any other commissioner comment? Is there any staff comment? Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor of Resolution 2019-24, authorizing Campbell Thomas and Company to provide grant applications for the C2P2 grant and the DCED Greenways grant, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Commissioner Booker, how did you vote? I'm sorry.
I voted aye.
Okay, I didn't hear you.
I
All right,
didn't vote no when you asked for no, so.
Well, I didn't know how you voted. All right, motion passes 7-0. Last item, P, motion to authorize the township solicitor to attend the Newtown Zoning Hearing Board on April 18th regarding the Delaware County Christian School Turf Field project to represent township interests. May I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Second. Okay. I don't know if staff wants to discuss this or.
Well, can I ask a question just out of curiosity? John, if our residents show up at a Newtown Township meeting, can they be denied? I mean, can they stop them from talking at the meeting? That just sounds wrong to me.
I think what has happened, and I haven't heard what's happened recently, but I think when they've gone to the Board of Supervisors, second-class township, they have not been permitted to provide public comment because there's a provision in the code that says only residents get to provide public comment. The elected officials, that's where that's been happening. If they go to the zoning hearing board, which is where this is going, I think they need a special exception. The school does for what they're proposing. Then anybody that meets the requirements to be a party, that they live close enough to the proposed development, and they have standing, they're not going to be able to get denied. So that's what I understand has happened. Elected officials have not permitted anybody who's a non-resident to give public comment. Zoning hearing board can't do that. Different standard.
I think what happened is they went to the supervisors, but the plan, they just knew of the plan because the school has alerted all of the residents. They had people come in and see the plan. They went to talk about the plan before it had actually been submitted to the township. So the supervisors didn't have anything, and because they weren't even Newtown residents, there was nothing on their agenda. But we have assurances that, yes, so they're first going to planning, which is this Thursday night, and then they'll be taking it, it'll be going to the zoning hearing board on the 18th. And it would be helpful if we could have the solicitor there to represent the township interest there.
Lisa, I'd just like to make note, and I know you were there, and the League of Women Voters hosted a forum on light pollution and the negative effects that it has. So I've dealt with this in my ward, and I heard the residents speak. So believe it or not, I'm actually going to be for this.
Well, I think if anyone knows that area, if you come over to that other side of town, in Newtown Square, basically the Christian school is on Malin Road. It's a 2-lane street, and people live right across the street, and they want to put the field right up next to the road with lights, and it's a sloped, it will be sloped, and some of the lights could actually end up being like at level with the second stories of some of the homes that are right across the street.
Mr. Booker was confused. It's actually a joke when I said I was for this. I've been fighting light pollution for a while, just to clarify. Okay.
Any other commissioner comment to the motion on the floor? Is there any staff comment? Mr. Rice, hopefully you're available on April 18th.
I am available.
Is there any public comment to the motion on the floor? All right, all those in favor of the motion to authorize the township solicitor to attend the No-Town Zoning Hearing Board on April 18th regarding the Delaware County Christian School Turf Field Project to represent township interests, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Lisa, I said aye.
I heard you. Thank you. I heard you that time. Thank you very much. The neighbors appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, do we have anything for public safety? Anything for community development?
Well, yeah, for community development, I would ask that we schedule a meeting for community development with Wayne Business Overlay and talk about the what's the name of the Conachetta? What's the guy's name? That we bring that and talk about it at community development.
Well, I think that's your committee,
Yeah,
Rich.
you're chair of that.
That's what I'm asking for.
Fire away.
Okay. Anything for personnel and administration? Library. Tonight is the last night you can fill out the survey. So if you want to win an iPad, fill out the survey. Good.
I did. When my son was at the train table, I went there and we did that. So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
They were trying to get to 1,000 at their meeting last week. They were up over 850. So we're very close. So if anyone go online and fill that out, you can access it through the library website. Anything for public health? No? Any new business?
Did you say Parks and Rec?
Oh, I didn't say Parks and Rec because I don't see them.
It's not on the list.
Oh, no, Parks and Rec was in the very beginning. That's where all the resolutions on.
Because I wanted to report that Jake and I both attended the last Parks and Rec meeting. There was a lengthy discussion request from a group that are mountain bikers to put some trails through Converse Park and the
Odoricio.
Odoricio. Yeah, Converse is Tennell. Yeah. So the next Parks and Rec Board meeting, they will be discussing this again, and we want to get that word out to the neighbors about that.
Yes, so, and I appreciate John mentioning that. So what was effective for the last meeting is the township sent letters to the residents that are around Odoricio that will be impacted by the activity. I could put out messages every day on Facebook or Twitter or social media. I don't think we're reaching every resident, so I think the most effective way is to get another letter out, letting them know that there's going to be a parks meeting. This issue will be on the agenda. There's opposition to it. There's people in support of it. And I think we need to bring them back and allow that healthy debate to occur.
Madam President, I would be against sending a letter. This is a private group that's trying to put something out. I'm not sure why we would, again, spend money to help promote or whatever on this information, to put information out. One is we're for trees, and here's one that's going to go through the trees. So I don't see why we would spend taxpayers' money to put this out.
In the letter, I don't think we're advocating for a position. We're informing the neighbors so they have an opportunity to come and have their voices heard. That's what the intent of the letter would be. It wouldn't say the township supporting this project, we're against the project. It would say the meeting's taking place, this issue is on the agenda. If you want to come talk and have your voice heard, please attend this meeting.
Jake, how many neighbors do you think that would be?
Bob, what did it, how many letters were sent out to for the last meeting?
I believe you'd asked for quite a few, I think, to go out, so
It'd
there was a lot.
It'd be residents
There was a lot
on
that went out.
Maplewood, Highland, and West Wayne. And Atlee, correct.
I think there's also an issue about ownership of who owns that property as well.
Well, that's one of the things that we identified to the Parks Board that they needed to sort through. I don't know, it seems like a reasonable request because it's about the use of a park. It's not really about the private group, it's about the public enjoyment of the park.
Jake, are you seeking some consensus for?
Yeah, I would like support of the board that, to ask to support having a letter sent to the neighbors.
Do we have consensus of the board to send letters to the neighbors with regards to the, is the mountain bike trail, correct? Is that what it is in Parks and Rec? Okay. Do we have consensus?
Well, I have some concern if Bob doesn't, are the mountain bikers Radnor people?
It is it's a Radnor group. My understanding it'd be run out of the middle school. But again, this isn't going into the details of what they're trying to do. This is alerting the neighbors so they have an opportunity to come and speak on it if they're for it or against it.
And Bob, you don't want to spend the taxpayer dollars to do it.
Well, when the township notifies residents that there's an implication as though we may be supportive or behind this, I'm always good with being able to put the information out, but when I hear a lot of the residents say they are against this, it goes against the idea of trees and what we're going to put trails through there. You won't have visual line of sight to go in there, so we have a lot of other issues that we should be addressing, spending time and dollars for, than putting a bike trail through woods. And again, I know I hear that it's minimal dollars, but it's time, staff time, and that to put it together. So whatever the board decides, we'd be more than happy to do.
Does anyone object to sending a letter?
it just seems that if we do it once, does this set a precedent going forward? So I don't really have much of an opinion. I don't really want to vote on this, to be honest with you, because I don't.
Voting, we're just seeking consensus.
Well, I don't want to participate, so I'll abstain from the consensus. And I'm allowed to abstain because this is this is abstainable.
I express no opinion on this.
Yes, I express no opinion as well.
Residents, let's give them notice. Send it.
I always err on the side of more communication. I
Let's
don't
not
have an
belabor a
issue.
$35
Yeah,
issue, please.
I
So-
don't have an
Well, it's
issue
not.
with
If you're
it.
sending
Come
out,
on.
it costs.
And staff?
It's
on.
a lot of
So you
time to put
approve it?
together a lot of letters, I guess.
And I'm sure that when we have other projects, we will be sending them out a lot of letters on this. There's again,
Beautiful.
This
whatever
just
the board would
reiterates
like
our
to
need
do.
for a communications person for the township.
And we are beginning the
That would be
process.
my pitch
I'm more
on
than
this.
happy to offer.
These
and
poor
draft a letter.
Eastern students. Oh, my God.
But they left.
I'll hand walk them to the doors. I will. I'll hand walk them. I will be more than happy to do that.
I
think there's consensus.
There's consensus. I think I always err on the side of too much communication. It's fine. I'm good with it. All right.
If Jake will prepare the letter, I'll walk him. Perfect.
Okay.
Old business.
Any other new business? I'm
I
sorry.
have one item of new business. We've got primary elections coming up, and I know this impacts my voting locations currently. I know Jack has an issue, Sean probably has an issue. I mean, we probably all have a similar issue, is that we have parking meters, and so when voters come, they think they have to pay the parking meters, and I don't know if that keeps some people from coming out or not. So I would like for the next meeting, if we could have something on the agenda to waive parking for Election Day and to have signs out there.
Isn't the parking always free on election day?
We do it, they just don't
Primary
know.
day. No, he wants it
We
for primary
don't,
day.
and then also too is if someone would happen to get a tickets taken care of, but then we'd be opening up, we'd have to do it all over the township, so that would be free parking day.
It's good for business. I think the Wayne Business Association would like that.
So really, all you have to do is, if
It's like a
that's what,
twofer.
that's what the board would like, we can just do it.
Why don't you put
Just
a
make a motion.
can we put a an item on the next agenda, on the April 8th agenda, and we can consider it and we can debate it then. For I
Eastern
guess
students, it's called Synergy.
are you saying that we can't do this? What's happening?
I think we can just make a motion now, and we,
Do you want to just make
just
a
be
motion
done.
now?
Sure.
Oh, I didn't have it on the agenda, so. I don't
It
wanna-
should go on the
Right.
agenda. It should go on the agenda and put it on.
Put it on the agenda and then take credit for it.
Yeah.
There we go. So we will add that to the next agenda. We have plenty of time. Any old business?
Old business. Attorney Rice, what is the status of the medical parking PLO zoning amendment? I thought we were going to introduce that for tonight. You're talking to the mic, nobody can hear you.
We sent that to planning for them to consider.
Yeah, it went back to the planning commission.
We sent that back to
And
planning.
I'm not-
No,
did they
we-
make a- It was put into an ordinance form sent to the planning commission. I don't know whether they've made a recommendation. But let me.
Did you put it into an ordinance form and send it to them, or was it not?
I believe it was, but let me check on that. If not, I'll shoot it to them for their April meeting.
If you could, let me know, thanks.
Any other old business? All right, public participation.
Well, just one more item of old business. People raised it. I requested that we review the comprehensive plan. This is for Ms. Tamola and one other. I do believe we need to review the comprehensive plan, and that it was 2005, updated 2015. It needs to be looked at again and reviewed.
Wouldn't that be something good for the Community Development Committee?
I don't know if it's community development. It's a comprehensive, separate committee, I think. But however we do it, I don't know how it was done before, but it is time to redo that, and especially in light of the many changes. It's been a score of years practically. Yeah, but there was no takers on it, so we're not going to address it until this board agrees to do it. So I would let's put it on the agenda again and try to do it.
Well, I thought didn't we talk about, you wanted us to redo it, and we talked about that, but
Yeah,
we didn't.
we should revise, comprehensive review and revision of the comprehensive plan. Yeah, we should look at the whole thing.
Yeah, isn't it a budget issue? Isn't
Yeah,
that
it
what
is a
we said?
budget issue.
We're going to address it.
Well, maybe we can talk about it
Put
on the
put it on the
29th.
29th. I don't see it as a capital item, but I think it's administrative, but whatever you want to do, let's.
Or perhaps there's somewhere else it fits better in the Finance Committee meetings. We'll take a look at that. Okay, now, public participation. Thank you for being so patient.
Thank you. I would like to commend Commissioner Abel for encouraging people to get out to vote and not have to worry about a parking fee, and for those on the board who will be looking at that at the next meeting. And secondly, I would like to encourage each of the commissioners tonight to see if there is a way that you might involve those people in your community who like to walk to do some of the hand delivering in your communities that might make people better informed without supporting the U.S. Postal Service with our taxpayers' dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, I will entertain a
Second.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
I didn't get a first.
So moved.
Okay. Second. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for being here. I hope it was informative.